has hit the coast of Gujarat. On the Newstrack tonight for the first half an hour, we'll be looking at the progress of the cyclone. These are live satellite images which give you a sense of how this cyclone is raining its fury currently in the areas of Dwarka, Mandia, Nalia, Jamnagar, Gandhidham. And as I scroll forward on the timeline, you will see how this cyclone will keep moving further inwards. This is what's likely to happen late tonight, where the cyclone moves much further into the Kutch Saurashtra area of Gujarat. And then let's take a look at what happens in the morning. These are the images expected in the morning, where the eye of the storm comes in much further. And as the day wears on tomorrow, the cyclone will keep going further into the heartland and its intensity will keep coming down. So we're tracking Cyclone Biparjoy. Our reporters literally in the eye of the storm, getting us live, continuous updates from the coast of Gujarat. We're also tracking what's happening elsewhere. All of that coming up on the Newstrack.
Turbo winds and rain. Turbulent seas.
But look at the wind speed, it is very difficult to even face this.
किस तरीके से हवा की रफ्तार यहाँ पे चल रही है, हम खड़े नहीं रह पा रहे हैं। लगातार आप एक बिल्डिंग के सामने आ गए हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पे खड़े रह पाना, आंखें खोल पाना भी मुश्किल हो रहा है।
8 other states on high alert. Cyclone Biparjoy landfall. Big focus on Newstrack.
I'm going to go across to our reporters who are in the eye of the storm. Before that, here's a look at the headlines I'm tracking tonight. Cyclone Biparjoy makes landfall. Wind speed and rain expected to intensify. Landfall will continue till midnight. 2 dead in the Panchayat poll clashes in West Bengal. Open firing in North Dinajpur. More live bombs recovered. Calcutta High Court pulls up state poll panel over violence. Karnataka government drops chapters on RSS founder Hegdewar and Savarkar from school textbooks. Anti-conversion law also repealed. Delhi police recommends cancellation of Foxco charge against WFI President Bhushan, but he's charged with sexual harassment, stalking and outraging women's modesty in the case relating to 6 other wrestlers. India set to get at least 18 Predator drones from the United States. Second mega defense deal after the GE 414 fighter engines will be signed during Prime Minister's US visit next week. Cyclone Biparjoy has made landfall in the coast of Gujarat. High winds and waves have been lashing the coast of Gujarat all day today. Here's a look at some of the pictures captured by India Today cameras. Biparjoy landfall currently underway. The cyclone hit Saurashtra and Kutch. These are the images from Morbi of the moment Biparjoy made landfall. Wind speeds touched 130 kilometers per hour. The landfall will continue till midnight. The town of Devbhumi, Dwarka, dramatic scenes witnessed as Cyclone Biparjoy swept away everything in its path. A few people that were out were seen struggling to walk. The impact of cyclonic winds was so strong in Mandvi that an electric pole fell down. Street lights on the road were shaking. Hoardings were ripped apart. Several trees were uprooted and roads caved in the Jamnagar area in the western coast of Saurashtra. Although landfall has started, wind speeds are yet to peak. Close to 1 lakh people have been evacuated. Teams of the National Disaster Relief Force, the State Disaster Relief Force, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force and the Coast Guard are on standby. Ashutosh Mishra joins us live from Mandvi. He's been reporting literally from the eye of the storm. Ashutosh, everyone across the country right now very concerned about where you are in Mandvi. Take our viewers through what you're experiencing, Ashutosh.
Well, Rahul, this has been really a troubleful day, totally. Since morning, there was one expectation that landfall, probably there will be some dilution as far as the wind velocity is concerned. But clearly it's the nature, and when it comes to the nature, the manpower, human effort, all goes literally failing. Right behind me, you see somehow we have taken a shelter near a private hospital in Mandvi. There is a literally power snap all over the city. This was indeed a preventive measures. But since the landfall process has begun, and it's going to intensify further, so it may take 4 to 5 more another hours when the peak of the impact will be seen at the coastal lines. Of course, the people from the low-lying areas have been evacuated, taken to the safer places. But when it intensifies, we have already seen the results of it. Most of the trees all along the line have been uprooted. Many banner posters, everything just falling apart. And probably while the night people will be sleeping in Mandvi, they would not realize that what they're gonna see next morning. So this morning at the port area, near the area, there was high tide. And remember, while it's gonna gradually intensify at around midnight, there will be also high tide at the same time, and that is one prediction that in low-lying area there's gonna be totally flood-like situation. We have seen QRTs, fire department, SDRF, NDRF, all teams have been put on standby if there is a requirement to evacuate people from those flood-affected area. Since mostly the concrete house, pakka houses, people are still living in, the close monitoring taking place at the moment. Power is totally blackout in the city except the emergency measures. Private hospitals are running on the private DG sets. So far all lying, and in fact people are praying just a safe passage, and they're praying this cyclone passes through without causing much damage. But the potential wind speed which is expected gusting up to 140 kilometers, we have seen several examples in recent past from Odisha to Gujarat to several other parts. When it touches down, what kind of devastation brings, Rahul?
I've covered a few super cyclones in my time, and the moment where Ashutosh is at this very instance is when you're in the eye of the storm. So the initial part of the cyclone has made landfall and it's raining, and then it feels okay, it's not so bad. That's because the cyclone is still coming, and it is where the eye ends and the real cyclone hits when the full fury, Ashutosh, of that cyclone is actually felt on the ground.
It was very difficult the moment, it was the pre side of the cyclonic activities taking place. I was barely able to stand, and imagine my camera person who's also carrying a live backpack, transmission equipments, camera, tripod, everything. So that literally makes it difficult, almost next to impossible. And for a moment, there have been several instances, Rahul, when suddenly the wind speed was so high, though it was barely for a second, they were literally feeling that we could be falling down near the creek area. So that was really one of the worst experiences, and it reminded me the severe, as severe cyclone as it was in 2019 in Odisha, when the hotels near this Puri line were totally devastated. Even at 20 kilometers of the radius, several bus shelters. So the way we have seen the wind speed, and it's kindly gonna intensify further, we will see literally almost a havoc created by this cyclone in this area. But it is going to be really a long and a painful night for the people of Mandvi who are praying for their safety. Of course, they are in a safe shelter. Many have been, in fact, venturing out. We have been advising them, please go home. There is alarm issued. There is guidelines issued. Don't venture out with your family outside, and remain indoors at least for the next 24 hours. So, of course, this is going to be really very long night here, Rahul, in Mandvi.
Okay, we'll keep coming back to you. Please stay safe. I see some trees behind you. I know you're being as careful as possible, but watch out and be very, very careful. Put safety first. Thanks, Ashutosh. I'll come back to you for more later. India today has the maximum reporters on the ground tracking Cyclone Biparjoy. They were in Kutch and Saurashtra when the cyclone made landfall. Here's what their cameras captured the moment the storm hit.
This is the situation right now where the cyclone is just 100 kilometers away from the Gujarat coast and sea. It's difficult to stand here, but still, I'm trying to show you the visuals of the structure that has collapsed at the hotel right now. This is just in front of the sea, and the breeze is going on, rain is there. Everything is happening at this moment while the cyclone is 100 kilometers away. This is a severe situation right now here. The cable has broken, and all the electric poles are just at the risk because of this heavy and gutsy wind. So this kind of situation normally occurs when the heavy wind is there. So still the other part of the structure, they are trying to removing it from here.
जिस तरीके से लैंडफॉल होना शुरू हुआ है, चक्रवात का ये लैंडफॉल है। और देखिए हम मांडवी में मौजूद है, लैंडफॉल हो रहा है यहाँ से करीब 90 किलोमीटर दूर जखाऊ के इलाके में ये लैंडफॉल हो रहा है, लेकिन उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है वो मांडवी में भी देखने मिल रहा है। और तेज़ हवाएं चल रही है, 110 के आसपास की जो रफ्तार है वो यहाँ पे तेज़ हवाओं की रफ्तार मानी जा रही है। और उससे जो नुकसान होना है, लोगों को बार बार ये कहा जा रहा है कि लोग अपने घरों के अंदर रहे, घरों से बाहर ना निकले, क्योंकि तेज़ हवाएं चलेगी। और ये तेज़ हवाओं का जो दौर है ये देर रात तक चलेगा।
The effect of Cyclone Biparjoy can be clearly seen in Jamnagar. You can see we are right now in Bed area and a huge tree has completely fallen down and blocked this particular road, and the wind speed is still so high. This huge tree and the electric pole have fallen on this particular house. The good thing is that no one inside that house, so nobody is injured. But look at the conditions right now. The bike is under it, the utensils of this particular house, but this huge tree and the electric pole came down on this house. 3 cows were there, and that 3 cows came in this particular tree when it fall down. Then immediately they came and rescued all the cows from here. So this is the situation right now we are witnessing on ground, that how due to Cyclone Biparjoy the conditions are actually very scary here, and in next few hours it will be more difficult situation for the people on ground. The NDRF and other officials are continuously getting calls that there are several trees which are fallen, some electric poles are fallen. So right now advice to all of the people over here is that they should stay indoor and stay safe.
And the pre-impact of this landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy is already visible in parts of Kutch and Mandavi. Almost everything goes invisible now. The creeks, very rough ocean, and the wind speed. This is literally going to create havoc in this region of Kutch. In fact, even standing at this place is next to impossible now. I can see literally the weather has deteriorated. All machineries are on standby. Quick response team will be at distinction. In fact, look at the wind speed. It is very difficult to even face this. In Kutch Mandvi with Sanjay Kumar, I'm Ashutosh Mishra for India Today.
I want to go across live at this moment to India Today and Aaj Tak's bureau chief in Gujarat, Gopi Manyar. She joins us. गोपी, मैं देख रहा था कि तमाम जो सरकार के मंत्री हैं वो मौके पे थे, मुआयना कर रहे थे कि किस तरीके की तैयारियां की गई हैं साइक्लोन बिपरजॉय के लैंडफॉल का। आप बताइए कि इस वक्त कितने लोगों को इवैक्यूएट किया गया और सरकार की तरफ से इस साइक्लोन के बाद किस तरह की तैयारियां हैं ज़मीन पे?
बिल्कुल, देखिए राहुल, आपको बता दें कि अब तक करीब 90,000 से ज़्यादा लोगों को इवैक्यूएट किया गया है सिर्फ 7 डिस्ट्रिक्ट में से, जिसमें कच्छ, द्वारिका, जामनगर, मोरबी और राजकोट का इलाका है। वहीं से अगर 90,000 जितने लोगों को इवैक्यूएट किया गया है तो एक बहुत बड़ा सरकार की ओर से डिसीजन लिया गया, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से साइक्लोन आने की चेतावनी यहाँ पे जारी की थी, पिछले 3 दिनों से लगातार इवैक्यूएशन का काम है वो यहाँ पे किया जा रहा था। इस वक्त हम देखिए पूरे मांडवी शहर के अंदर लाइट नहीं है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी न होने की वजह से काफी ज्यादा लोगों को परेशानी हो रही है। साथ ही पूरी तरीके से जो हवा की रफ्तार है वो करीब 110 के आसपास बताई जा रही है। कहीं से भी किसी भी तरीके का फ्लाइंग ऑब्जेक्ट जो है बाहर से हम लोग लाइव कर रहे थे, लेकिन इतना डरावना मंजर लग रहा था क्योंकि तेज हवाएं चल रही है, पेड़ हिल रहे हैं, पूरी तरीके से जो होर्डिंग्स की आवाजें हैं वो सारी हिलने की आ रही है। तो बेहद डरावना लग रहा था क्योंकि कभी भी कुछ भी आके आपको चोट पहुंचा सकता है। और जिस वक्त ये साइक्लोन टकराया है, 5 घंटे का ये पूरा प्रोसेस है जो मेट डिपार्टमेंट ने बताया है। उसका इम्पैक्ट जखाऊ से लेकर मांडवी का इलाका है, कम से कम पूरा जो कच्छ का इलाका है वहाँ पे उसका इम्पैक्ट महसूस किया जा रहा है और तेज बारिश यहाँ पे शुरू हो चुकी है। तो लोगों के लिए और गवर्नमेंट के लिए, क्योंकि ये रात का वक्त है और रात के वक्त में कितना नुकसान होगा उसका अंदाजा लगा पाना फिलहाल काफी मुश्किल है। तो कल सुबह का इंतजार करना पड़ेगा। आज की रात है वो कहीं ना कहीं, चाहे वो सरकार हो या आम आदमी हो, हर किसी के लिए काफी भारी कहेंगे, क्योंकि तेज हवाएं चलेगी, बारिश हो रही है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं है। वैसे में कितना नुकसान होगा, किस तरीके से होगा, क्या होगा, ये सारी चीजें लोगों के जहन में बेहद डरावनी रहेगी और कल सुबह इसका अंदाजा लगा पाएंगे कि कितना नुकसान हुआ है। रिस्टोरेशन की अगर प्रोसेस करनी है तो किस तरीके से करनी है, क्योंकि पूरी टीम, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी हो या सड़क की टीम हो या फिर जो जल विभाग की टीम हो, ये सारी टीम को कच्छ के अंदर डिप्लॉय कर दिया गया है। मेडिकल इमरजेंसी के लिए एम्बुलेंसेस को डिप्लॉय कर दिया गया है। तो ये सारी चीजों को लेकर फिलहाल तैयारी पूरी कर दी गई है, लेकिन रात का वक्त है, साइक्लोन टकरा रहा है, रात के 2 बजे तक ये पूरी प्रोसेस चलेगी। तो कल सुबह पता चल पाएगा कि साइक्लोन की वजह से नुकसान हुआ है वो कितना नुकसान हुआ है। राहुल,
Gopi, we'll come back to you for more later. Please stay safe. That's my top concern at this moment. Makarand Kulkarni joins us. He's a meteorologist with SkyMet Weather. Mr. Kulkarni, welcome. Can you give our viewers a sense of how this cyclone is proceeding at this moment? I was told that the wind speeds are slightly lesser than what was initially expected. How far into India's heartland will the impact of this cyclone be felt, and by about what time?
So, cyclone, as now you know, it has made a landfall in Kutch, basically. So, earlier it was category 2 cyclone, and while making a landfall, it became category 1. So that is one good thing for us, that the wind speed has reduced. However, right now some parts might see a calm winds type of situation. But in night, majorly the Nalia, Gandhigram, that particular part will see winds near 80 or 100 kilometers per hour also, which is below the cyclone, which is south side of the Saurashtra and Kutch region. And inside this will go to Khandwa, and then it will enter slight Pakistan, and it will convert into low and it will go to Rajasthan. So entire now you can see that for next almost 6, 7 to 8 hours are very critical after landfall. The winds will be very high, and after it crosses, there will be torrential rains also will continue after this cyclone. So we have to be prepared for that right now.
You know, the other big question, of course, is your assessment about the impact this could have on the monsoon, because the monsoon is massively tracked all across. Given that there is such a massive cyclone coming in, to what extent does this impact the speed at which the monsoon is moving towards the heartland?
So it's a good thing that you asked this question, because now only people are asking regarding cyclone. So see, whenever there is a cyclone in near onset of monsoon, no, onset gets delayed. Like there was one cyclone in Bay, so our onset got delayed. Now in general,
delayed by how many days?
Pardon?
Delayed by how many days?
For this cyclone also, because of this cyclone, the monsoon is not progressing at its speed. So what will happen when this cyclone will, now it has made landfall, when it will be converted into low, the monsoon will start rising towards Mumbai and Maharashtra part. But the rest part of India will not get much rainfall. That is our assessment right now. So the monsoon will, the onset is weak. We will not see very heavy rainfall. The rainfall will increase in southern parts of India like Kerala and Karnataka part, but rest part of India will not get much rainfall, at least till end of this month.
So I understand the part where you're saying, Mr. Kulkarni, that the monsoon gets delayed. Could you try and tell me how many days does it get delayed by? Secondly, does the nature of the monsoon change? Because a lot depends on the kind of monsoon India will see. So does it stay the same as was expected, which is supposed to be a near normal monsoon, or could the cyclone impact the kind of monsoon India sees?
Yes, cyclone definitely impacts the monsoon, as I told also, and particularly when cyclone near onset will definitely impact, because you see it's like a dawn which is moving here. So if you see the cloud satellite images, the clouds are just concentrated near that cyclone. So so the entire this energy right now, this is with cyclone, and it has taken lot of energy from our Arabian Sea. So a monsoon will it looks like for next 15 days
Wow.
the rain activities will not be much. There will be rainfall here and there, but not like monsoon rainfall like MP, our Odisha, Maharashtra, also some part, the central part of India, which we call core monsoon zone, will not receive expected rainfall at least till next 15 days, till June end.
No, so what I was trying to understand before I conclude is, if the monsoon's progress is getting delayed, you've made that point, till about the end of June, but does it change what happens after that? Will these places still receive the kind of rain they would have received ordinarily had the cyclone not happened, or does the cyclone also impact the kind of rain that Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh would now receive in comparison with what they would have received had the cyclone not happened? That's my question.
So cyclone will not go till Punjab, Haryana. Right now, it will be just southern part of Rajasthan. It will affect Jodhpur, particularly district. The low will go there, and it will bring some rains over there, but it will not go to Punjab, Haryana, and those parts of India.
Okay, that wasn't the question I was asking. What I was asking was that will this cyclone impact the kind of rainfall in the monsoon that the other Indian states will get? You've said it will delay the arrival of the monsoon to these states. What I'm trying to understand from you is, let's assume Delhi, as an example, was to get 100 units of rainfall ordinarily in this monsoon. Now that this cyclone has happened, does that 100 units change to 80 units or 60 units, or does it still stay 100 units? That's essentially my question.
Cyclone, as repeatedly telling, it is impacting the progress of monsoon, but it's if we see the monsoon is 4 months business, and cyclone is maximum 4, 5, 6 days. So it will not impact after its landfall. Its importance is over, but till that, the damage what it has done is it has stop the progress of monsoon. Now monsoon should have gone till MP and above, so which is not the case right now.
Understood.
Definitely it has impacted, and what damage it has done is already done now.
Okay, Makarand Kulkarni, for joining us. Thank you very much. So you're predicting like a 15-day delay in the progress of the monsoon. That is significant, and of course the kind of destruction that we'll see because of the impact of Cyclone Biparjoy. We'll keep tracking that very, very closely. For a moment, I want to shift attention away from the meteorologist and go across to Dwarka. Brajesh Doshi joins us, and as I do this, I want to go across and show you where the cyclone is at this moment. Live images of where the cyclone is at this moment, and then I want to go across to Brajesh Doshi. He's in Dwarka at this moment. This is where the cyclone will be at 9 p.m. tonight. Here you are, 1 second. There you go. So this is where the cyclone will be at 9 p.m. tonight. The eye of the storm coming in, and then as we progress further through the night, head towards the morning, the cyclone comes in much further. So by about by about 9, 10, you can start feeling the impact in the morning of the cyclone inside Rajasthan as well. Brajesh Doshi is in Dwarka, a very significant Indian city. Brajesh, we've looked at what's been happening in Mandvi, we've looked at what's happening in Jamnagar. Give our viewers a sense of the situation on the ground in Dwarka where you are. Brajesh.
Rahul, right now the situation is getting worse because there is a heavy wind and as well as the rain is heavily downpour is here. So that's why it's difficult to stay at this ground. But I'm trying to give you the details regarding this is the situation of Dwarka. I will ask my cameraman to show you some scenes outside the beach area because the lights are not here. The power cuts are here in Dwarka, in Jamnagar and in Kutch. As a precautionary step, government has shut down the power supply for next 24 to 48 hours. So people are staying at home and they have to be in the home without lights. If they have generator, then they can use their generator for the light. Otherwise, all people have to stay without light and they have to be in home because on one side there is rain and one side there is heavy wind, gutsy wind are there. So this is the situation right now in Dwarka. A similar situation in more than severe situation in Kutch because the cyclone is reaching towards Kutch. So that's why and it's hitting around Kutch Jakhau port. So how much it will damage or how much the damage is done, it will be we will get the information by tomorrow morning. Right now the situation is not so good. The sea is rough from the morning itself. So these kind of situation, these kind of scenes are everywhere near the coastal area, be it Pobandar, be it Jamnagar, be it Dwarka or be it Kutch. So this is the normal situation because of the cyclone right now. It's very difficult to stay in the evening. Well, when I was reporting from here, the same spot, there was a wind speed of around 80 kilometers per hour and it was difficult to stay on the ground. So this kind of situation at the time of cyclone is hitting to Kutch and then there will be more 6 hours. The impact will last for the 6 hours. So that will be the difficult period for the government and the people as well because they have to stay at home and they don't know what will happen and how it will happen because the rain on one side there is rain and then the other side there is a gutsy wind. So this is the difficult situation for the people and the administrative part also.
Thanks, Brajesh. We'll come back to you in just a moment for more. And if you could just give me a sense of what everyone is doing there, Brajesh. You know, all the people in Dwarka where you are, where are the people in the areas where the maximum fury of the cyclone will be felt? Have they been taken in? Are they still in their homes? Are they inside Pakka homes? What kind of preparations has the government made on the ground, Brajesh?
See Rahul, in Dwarka more than 10,000 people have been evacuated from the low-lying area from last couple of days. So all the people who were living in the low-lying area, they have been evacuated to the shelter homes of the government. More than 40 shelter homes have been created for temporary due to this cyclone. So they are staying there for next 24 to 48 hours. Because of the effect of the cyclone and they cannot go to their home till the government authorities will allow them. So they are right now at the shelter homes. Government has made all the preparations for them, be it food or be it water supply or be it the electricity. Though electricity is not right now because of the precautionary measures, they have shut down the power supply. But on the other side, I would like to add that Army, Navy and Coast Guard, they are also on the standby mode because the Okha port is just 30 kilometers away from the Dwarka and it is also near to the Kutch. So 50 ships of Coast Guard and 7 rescue helicopters are there in Okha and they are just waiting for tomorrow morning. If needed, they will rescue some people if heavy rainfall will continue till night. So if there will be flood-like situation, Army, Navy and Coast Guard, they are on standby mode in Okha.
Brajesh Doshi for joining us from Dwarka. I want to go across to Jamnagar. Jamnagar is where Reliance Industries has its massive refinery, a lot of heavy duty industrial equipment over there. Saurabh Akhtania is joining us from there. Saurabh, this is where we have very high value industrial installations and largely they'd be secure, but I'm very curious to know what the current situation in Jamnagar is. What can you tell us?
So, well, Rahul, let me tell you that the situation is in Jamnagar right now is coming back to normal because earlier the wind speed were very high. Since afternoon, the wind was blowing at a very high speed, but right now the speed has decreased. The visuals behind me, you can see there is lot of vehicular traffic movement as well. People have now started to come out of their houses as well. Earlier, this was not the situation. There have been many calls which have been made to the NDRF and other government officials that there have been many incidents of trees which have fallen. Also, many of the electric poles have been fallen, and some of the huge hoardings in Jamnagar city were seen flying. So those 4 to 5 hours were very critical. The NDRF officials are over here. They were spread across several places in Jamnagar. Remember, half of the Jamnagar still does not have electricity. That electricity was completely cut down because if the electric poles were falling on that particular time, then people could have died due to electric current. I was one of that spot in Bed, wherein in one house itself a huge tree and an electric pole both fall on one particular house. So the situation was pretty much grim at that particular time, but right now things are trying to get back at normal. But how much discussion?
Saurabh, I just want to tell you and our viewers that anybody who at this time thinks that things have become normal is actually making a big mistake. And let me try and explain this. So think of this as the eye of the storm. So the eye of the storm has the beginning of the eye, and that's what's happened. So the beginning of the eye has struck landfall and has hit the coast of Gujarat. Then you're in the middle of the eye, and when you're in the middle of the eye, it almost feels exactly what Saurabh Akhtani is describing at this moment, that there is a vacuum, that suddenly there's no wind. There's a lot of wind as the storm was coming in, and then there's nothing, and you feel, okay, maybe it wasn't so bad, maybe things aren't so bad after all, and this was a bit of hype. When the eye ends is when the real fury in terms of wind speed, in terms of the rain, actually comes and hits the ground, and that's when you realize and feel the full might of the storm. So where Saurabh is, and which is why at this moment in some places it feels as if the wind speeds have gone down, and I've experienced this personally covering super cyclones in Orissa, which is why for a while after landfall it feels that, okay, you know, stopped raining, maybe things are getting better. But Saurabh Akhtani, that isn't actually the case, which is what in Dwarka and elsewhere people are going to realize in some time from now when the eye actually ends. Okay, there is obviously a lot of disturbance there in the area where Saurabh Akhtani is. We'll go back to him for more, but remember, if at this moment it feels as if there's a vacuum, it's because you are in the eye of the storm, which is why it is called being in the eye of the storm. The massive storm is actually coming at the back, and I can show it to you on the image as well, which is where the storm really is, and therefore that's what you need to be really mindful of. So just one second, let me come to this particular moment. Here we are at about 8 p.m. So the moment you're in the eye of the storm, you feel as if there's been a suction, which is where the winds are coming from the back, and that's where the full might of the cyclone actually hits you. What we want to do right now is, for a moment, turn our attention to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's massive visit to the United States next week. And just before that, it's now come into public knowledge that India and the United States will be signing a landmark drone deal. The $1.8 billion deal will give India 18 lethal Predator drones. The weaponized hunter-killer drones will give India a big boost in its surveillance and military intelligence capabilities. This is a hunter-killer that the Indian Armed Forces have been wanting for a very long time, but for various reasons, on account of cost, on account of the absence of transfer of technology, India hadn't been able to place an order yet. Now the decks being cleared, the formal announcement will be made when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the United States, and this weapon acquisition will be a big game changer for the kind of capabilities India has against China and against Pakistan.
The
These lethal long-endurance, medium-altitude drones may soon be the new weapons in the arsenal of the Indian Armed Forces. The Defence Acquisition Council on Thursday gave its nod for the acquisition of the Sea Guardian drones. The Army, the Navy and the Air Force are looking at 10 drones each. The Indian Navy has already leased two MQ-9 Sea Guardians, the naval version of the drones, for intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance operations since 2020.
ये जो डील है ये हमारे देश की मैरीटाइम और ओवरऑल सिक्योरिटी के लिए बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि सर्वेलेंस सबसे ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण स्थान रखता है, क्योंकि हमें चाहिए कि हम अपनी एरिया में जहाँ एरिया ऑफ ऑपरेशंस है वहाँ निगरानी रख सकें, और ये क्षमता इस कैपेबिलिटी से हमें मिलती है.
The MQ-9A Reaper drones were used for the precision targeting of Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul. These unmanned combat aerial vehicles, apart from a number of sensors, cameras and radars, are also capable of carrying 4 Hellfire missiles for precision targeting of high-value targets. Both the Army and the Air Force are looking at these drones for high-risk operations to destroy strategic assets of the adversary without risking the lives of pilots. These hunter-killer drones can carry 4 Hellfire missiles. They're also capable of carrying 2 laser-guided bombs and 2 joint-action direct munitions or JDAMs. These drones can fly at an altitude of 40,000 feet and remain airborne for over 36 hours. They're also capable of loitering in the sky, scanning the ground below for the enemy. The MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones come with both maritime surveillance, reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The drones are capable of providing over-the-horizon surveillance and reconnaissance support both to warships and surface units. With increased Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean region, coupled with Chinese aggression along the LAC, these UCAVs will help keep an eye on the adversary both in the Himalayas and in the Indian Ocean region and take out strategic targets when needed. Bureau Report, India Today.
Ahead of this massive visit, I spoke to the new US ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit and the next stage in India's relationship with the United States, which is being called the most important, the most critical relationship at this moment in the world. To talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big state visit to the United States, we're joined in New Delhi by the US Ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti. Mr. Garcetti, welcome. And it's fantastic to see you in person. All of us in India have been waiting for you for so long, so it's really great to have you here.
Well, it feels like home. Thank you. It's so much has changed, but the warmth of India has not.
Oh, fantastic. We've seen a massive build-up to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was here. Do you want to give our viewers at India Today a sense of what they should expect? What do you hope would be the big takeaways of the Prime Minister's state visit to the US?
Well, I think it's a historic visit, but it's also at an historic moment, an historic time, not just in the friendship between the United States and India, but even in the world, the global challenges we face, everything from climate change to war. How do we have what I call the 4 Ps? Peace, prosperity, our planet, and people. And I think this visit will focus on how India and the United States can be a force for good in each of these, creating more peace, building more prosperity, protecting our planet, and connecting our people.
The US Defense Secretary was here. The National Security Advisor has been here.
Yes.
Some of the key outcomes are being kept guarded, but can you give us a sense of what people should expect in terms of the key announcements that are likely to be made during the Prime Minister's visit?
Well, I think no surprises to all of your viewers and to folks who have been watching this relationship. We've been deepening our military cooperation, whether that's defense production, our technologies, our training. All of that is a really important piece of deterring bad actors, but also strengthening our own defense in the Indo-Pacific region. Second, you're going to see, as we just saw with the National Security Advisor's visit, technology. How can India, which is brilliant on technology, and America, which has cutting-edge universities in technology, use technology as a force for good? So I think you'll see things around how do we ensure that our cell phones are used to protect us and connect us, not to oppress us? What can we do to have critical minerals move forward so the supply chain is diversified? And what can we do to lessen some of the trade wars that even at a small level we've seen burn for decades between the US and India? And then I think when it comes to the people-to-people, we're going to see, I think, some agreements to move forward on climate at work. We're going to see agreements on education, and hopefully some good things that will connect our people with fewer wait times for folks who are looking to travel to the United States, whether it's as students or whether it's as immigrants.
That's a big issue here. People
Absolutely.
Waiting for visas.
And a priority of mine.
Oh, great, fantastic. Hopefully you can resolve some of those niggles. Prime Minister Modi has been to the United States earlier. This is his first state visit, though.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a sense of how important this is in the U.S. scheme of things, this relationship with India and this particular moment?
I think this is the most critical relationship growing in the world today. And I think that this visit reflects that. I know the Prime Minister came as a young man, talks about how he looked at the White House, and now to come back as leader of the most populous country in the world, the largest democracy in the world. I hope that this will really be a chance for people to see these are two countries that don't just do big things, we have values underneath them, the foundations of the things that we stand for, pluralistic societies, making sure that, like this interview, we have a press that informs us, looking at the ways we can empower women, take the poor and move them into the middle class, how technology can help us have opportunity. That will really be highlighted, I think, in a beautiful way, not just to improve India and the United States, but imagine what India and the United States can do together for the rest of the world.
India-US ties are deepening at a time when tensions between Washington and Beijing and New Delhi are increasing as well. How do you see the India-US dynamic play out in the context of China trying to rise as a superpower and try and dominate its neighbors and the rest of the world?
Well, I think that we share those values, that we should have a free Indo-Pacific region, freedom of the seas, that we should have protection of basic democracy and human rights. I think that we see our relationship not based on any third party. And I know India wants to have more peaceful relations with China. The United States wants to have more peaceful relations with China. But in the meantime, if we see any country out there acting against rule of law, acting against our interests, I think we have a deep friendship and, in many ways, a strategic partnership that says we will be there for each other in times of need.
You know, you've come to India at a time when this massive visit's happening, and everybody's been waiting for your confirmation to happen for you to come here. How's your stint in India been so far? Because whether it's Anthony Blinken, whether it's Jake Sullivan, whether it's the Defense Secretary, you had massive visits happening at a very high level. So you literally been thrown into the hot seat.
I think every ambassador around the world, American ambassador, is jealous of how much attention India is getting. I mean, to have a visit of the Prime Minister at a state visit, to have our president come for the G20 2 months later. They just saw each other in Japan. Hopefully they'll see each other even later in the year. This is, I think, indicative that India is hot, America is hot, and that Indians love Americans and Americans love Indians. It's a time for us to strengthen that bridge between us. It's a time for us to do that not just for ourselves, but also, I think, increasingly for the world.
Let's spend a moment on that G20 summit.
Yes.
President Joe Biden will be here in September. How do you see India's presidency shape up so far, and what do you think should be or could be the key legacy that the Indian presidency leaves behind?
India is really a bridge between East and West, a bridge between North and South, and a bridge between the past and the future. And in that sense, I think we have an amazing opportunity to see India's leadership, whether it's empowering women, whether it's making sure that folks have access to capital, whether it's looking at the work that's being done with technology as a force for good. These things together, I think, can be the legacy of G20, and we're very excited to support India's chairing of this. We know it's a difficult time. We might not get unanimity on everything, especially when it comes to war. We'll speak up still about a war of aggression of the Russians in Ukraine. But that doesn't mean the other work has to stop. We will see, I think, some very productive, very important work, and we invite every country to join us in that here in India.
Well, thank you very much. I hear that there's a huge demand for people to be in DC at that big dinner that President Biden...
Hottest ticket in town.
Yeah, it is absolutely the hottest ticket in town. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
My pleasure.
And we wish you all the best. Hope you have a great stint. And that promise that you just made about reducing visa times, everyone watching, I can guarantee you,
We're going to be working on
hold you to that.
We're going to be working hard to get it done.
Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Thank you. See you soon.
You too.
Cheers.
Thank you.
America's new ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, he's excited, as is the Indian government, about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big visit. And there's a massive build-up that's happened. You've had the US Defense Secretary here. Before them, the Secretary of State was here. Jack Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, was here. In 6 days, the much-awaited Biden-Modi Milan will happen in DC. The United States government is extending the highest possible protocols to Prime Minister Modi, including a gun salute, an address to the US Congress, and a gala state dinner and a private dinner hosted by Mr. and Mrs. Biden.
A diplomatic engagement of the highest significance in 2023. The world's most powerful nation set to extend the highest protocols to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his official state visit starting June 21st. Military honors, gala dinner, summit talks, and an address by the leader of the world's largest democracy to a joint session of US Congress.
Prime Minister of India will be the first leader in independent India to address the US Congress twice. In my conversations with many of the congressmen and senators, I can certainly tell you that there is a lot of excitement amongst them. They want to hear about the India story, and they want to hear about Prime Minister's vision and his thinking.
An Indian initiative his government launched in 2014. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to lead the International Yoga Day himself at the United Nations Secretariat in New York on June 21st.
Under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, who's really been pushing international recognition of yoga and supported the International Day. So the Honorable Prime Minister will be leading this session of yoga at the UN, at the United Nations, at the Secretariat on the 21st of June. I think it'll really be a very, very big deal.
He travels to Washington the same day. The Prime Minister is likely to attend an education event with First Lady Jill Biden. The day ends with a private dinner with President Biden and his family. An official welcome for the Prime Minister at the White House in Washington, D.C. the next day. A 21-gun salute in honor of Prime Minister Modi. A bilateral with President Joe Biden follows, with defense, tech partnership and climate change in focus. At Capitol Hill, the Prime Minister scheduled to address the joint session and became the only Indian Prime Minister to get the honor twice. His speech will be keenly watched for his geopolitical import. The Prime Minister will be back at the White House in the evening for the state dinner. In attendance will be some 250 guests representing the diversity of the Indian American community.
Here that there's a huge demand for people to be in DC at that big dinner that President Biden
Hottest
will be
ticket in
hosting.
town.
Yeah, it is absolutely the hottest ticket in town. We look forward to seeing you there.
Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken will host a lunch on June 23rd for Prime Minister Modi at the State Department. During his US tour, Prime Minister Modi will address two diaspora gatherings, one of them at the prestigious Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. A visit expected to transform India-US ties and elevate their strategic partnership across sectors. With Seema Sirohi in Washington and Geeta Mohan in New Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
I will be in New York and then in Washington, D.C. covering the Prime Minister's big visit. You can track all our coverage all through the week next week. Coming up on the other side of a quick break, the Delhi police recommends cancellation of POCSO charges against WFI President Brij Bhushan, but he's charged with sexual harassment, stalking and outraging women's modesty in the case relating to 6 other wrestlers. Details coming up on the other side.
Where the software engineer meets the smart market analyst, meets the talented photographer to create the big dream. The world comes together at Sharda University. So where are you?
Pranav Salkar saw his mother struggle to get water after coming back from work every day. The nearest source of water was half a kilometer away. Pained by this sight, the 14-year-old took matters into his own hands. He started digging a well, and in 4 days, he struck gold.
त्याला मी एक सूचना दिली होती का इथे कोण थोडंसं पाणी लागतो का आपण बघूया. नंतर आम्ही मग कामावर जायची सुरुवात केली. मग त्यांनी मनापासून सुरुवात केली खोदायला. म्हणजे करता त्यांनी खोदता 3-4 दिवस त्यांनी लावले आणि पाणी लागलं.
Pranav's parents speak fondly of their son's efforts. They recount how he had made a ladder to dig out soil from the pit.
आम्ही मजुरी करतो आणि संध्याकाळी येतो काम करून. मग मला त्रास होतो म्हणून माझ्या मुलाने विहीर खोदली 4 दिवसात. मला आनंद वाटतो.
ते पाणी तुम्ही वापरता का?
त्या पाणी आम्ही वापरतो.
Kelve village in Palghar gets piped water thrice a week. To Pranav's parents, who work as labourers, the well is a relief. And it goes without saying, Pranav is now a hero in his village. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Delhi police has submitted a 1,500-page charge sheet against Wrestling Federation chief Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. He's been charged with sexual harassment, outraging a woman's modesty and stalking. But in the minor assault case, cops have submitted a cancellation report claiming that the victim has changed her statement. It is now for the court to decide whether the victim will be allowed to withdraw her statement or will the charges stand, because they were made under section 164, which means the judge can decide that Brij Bhushan Sharan will be tried under POCSO as well.
Months of angry protests, agony and street fights later, Indian wrestling heroes' demand for justice is met. Some would say halfway. The Delhi police on Thursday filed a 1,500-word charge sheet in the Rouse Avenue court against the Wrestling Federation of India President Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. The WFI chief is charged with sexual harassment, outraging the modesty of a woman and stalking under various sections of the Indian Penal Code. The police, in a separate move, have also filed a cancellation report in the Patiala House Court in the POCSO case against Brij Bhushan. In this 550-page cancellation report, the police claim they've not found any corroborative evidence in the case. The police say the minor wrestler had levelled allegations of sexual assault against Brij Bhushan out of anger. The report says the complainant changed her statements before the magistrate. The police have recommended closure of charges under POCSO or the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act against Brij Bhushan.
रेसलर्स की कंप्लेंट पर केस रजिस्टर हुआ था, उसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंप्लीट हुई है, तो उसके बाद हमने इसमें चार्जशीट है कंसर्न कोर्ट में फाइल कर दी है. इसमें सेक्शन 354, 354A और D इनके तहत हमने ब्रिज भूषण है उनके खिलाफ और मिस्टर विनोद तोमर हैं, उनके खिलाफ भी 109, 354A, 354 एंड 506 IPC में चार्जशीट दाखिल कर दी है.
The charge sheet provides some comfort for champion wrestlers Bajrang Punia, Sakshi Malik, Vinesh Fogart and their supporters, though their main demand of arresting Brijbhushan is not met so far. The opposition has accused the Narendra Modi government of protecting Brijbhushan, who is accused of sexual assault.
एक अवयस्क लड़की इतने बड़े आदमी के खिलाफ पॉक्सो की शिकायत दर्ज करती है, यौन शोषण का आरोप लगाती है, और फिर सारा तंत्र, सारी पुलिस, इस देश की सत्ता, इस देश की सरकार, सरकार के मंत्री, सरकार के सांसद मिलकर एक तरफ उस लड़की के खिलाफ खड़े हो जाते हैं और संरक्षण बृजभूषण शरण सिंह को दिया जाता है और उस लड़की को गलत साबित करने पर लोग तुल जाते हैं.
सेक्सुअल असॉल्ट के केसेस दर्ज होने के बाद जब अभियुक्त को गिरफ्तार ना किया गया हो, उसको जमानत मिली या नहीं मिली वो बात की बात है. ये पहला अवसर है जब किसी देश विदेश की नहीं, दुनिया भर की जो नामी ग्रामी पहलवान हैं उनके द्वारा FIR दर्ज की गई हो और अभियुक्त गिरफ्तार ना हो.
Even as a political showdown has begun over the police's handling of the POCSO case, the decision to close the case is to be taken by the court.
The charge sheet has been filed within the 15th June deadline as set by the sports minister. With the Delhi police now pulling off a balancing act by filing charge sheet in one case and cancellation report in the other, how the wrestlers react to this remains to be seen. With Shreya Chatterjee and camera person Alok from New Delhi, this is Srishti Ojha, India Today.
This is where I wrap up the news track tonight. We'll track the wrestlers' case very closely and we'll also track Cyclone Biparjoy. Our teams on the ground tracking every movement of the cyclone for you. Thank you for your time and your trust. Look forward to seeing you at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Goodbye. Good night.
Forecast now. Delhi, maximum 42 and minimum 29 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 31 and minimum 28 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 45 and minimum 31 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 33 and minimum 22 degrees. Chennai, maximum 36 and minimum 30 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 39 and minimum 27 degrees.
Akanksha. How will the valuation cuts impact employee ESOPs? What have you learned?
Well, in very simple terms, ESOPs are basically equity in the company in which the employees are working. This is granted to them in the form of remuneration by the company. So what happens is, at the time when the ESOPs are granted, they're granted to employees at a rate which is called the strike rate, which is usually lower than the market rate at that point in time. And moreover, the ESOPs, the strike rate of the ESOPs depends on the valuation of the company at that point in time. So what's happening here is, in the normal due course of time, it's expected that once the ESOPs have vested, employees can go out and sell the ESOPs at their strike rate. And since the market rate is, of course, going to be higher than the strike rate, the difference between the market rate and the strike rate is the employee's profit. But now, in situations like this, where the valuation of the company has reduced, it's most likely that when these employees go out with the strike rate at which they had received when the valuation was high, and when they try to sell their ESOPs, the difference between the market rate and the strike rate is not going to be as much as they were expecting before at a higher valuation, which means their monetary benefit and profit is also going to reduce. So that's how the valuation of ESOPs has changed with the devaluation or the reduction in the valuation of these companies.
How do you think employees are likely to react to this, Akanksha?
Well, there are two likely scenarios in which this is going to play out, at least in the short term. For starters, it's going to be extremely difficult to retain talent which is already working at these companies. It's because these employees had a set monetary figure in mind when, they had gotten these ESOPs. They thought that this is the amount.
Co-presented by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
Co-presented by Kentaro, जो देता है सबसे शुद्ध पानी. Co-presented by JK Tyre Ranger Series, stay wild at heart. Co-presented by Hayfler, let's reimagine. Powered by NECC, Sunday hoya Monday, Rose Khao Monday.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination news, newsmakers, talking points. Thursday night, we'll be tracking Cyclone Biparjoy as it makes a landfall tonight on the Gujarat coast. Also, our big talking point tonight, the BJP MP, Wrestling Federation Chief Brij Bhushan is charged, but with no POSCO. Has the case been watered down? Has the wrestler's plea for justice been heard or not? That's the question we'll raise. But as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. Cyclone Biparjoy's landfall process begins on the Gujarat coast. Wind speeds expected to touch 130 kilometers per hour. Process to continue till midnight. So far, no reports of death, but devastation could take place in some parts. The police recommend cancellation of the POXO case against Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. The BJP MP and Wrestling Federation head says no proof in the minors case. Brij Bhushan charged with sexual harassment, stalking, outraging women's modesty. The opposition says he's been let off lightly. 2 dead in clashes in Bengal, Chopra town. Clashes, open firing in North Dinajpur, nomination filing. Calcutta High Court orders deployment of central forces across Bengal for the Panchayat polls. Violence continues in Manipur. Security forces and a mob clash. Homes lit on fire. Internet shut down. Extended by another 5 days. Karnataka Cabinet approves textbook revision. Hedgewar, Savarkar chapters out. Ambedkar and Nehru added in the syllabus. Madras High Court allows Tamil Nadu minister to be shifted to a Kaveri hospital. Accused Senthil Balaji accuses ED officers of assault. India set to get 18 Predator drones from the US, second mega defense deal after the GE-414 fighter engines, which will be signed during the PM's US visit. Trade deficit widens to $22 billion in May. It's a 5-month high, more than a 10% fall in merchandise exports. Sluggish demand from major buyers overseas. And the Asia Cup to be held in a hybrid model between Pakistan and Sri Lanka. India will play its matches in Sri Lanka and not in Pakistan. Tournament to be held from August 31st to September 17. But the big story that we are breaking this evening, Cyclone Biparjoy's landfall process is now underway. Biparjoy will complete its landfall by midnight along the Gujarat coast. Power has been disconnected in Mandvi, Mundra and Nalia. Strong winds and heavy rainfall is lashing the Gujarat coast. 15 ships, 7 aircraft, 3 helicopters are on standby as there is a massive relief operation been launched to ensure that the casualties are minimum, destruction is minimum. So those are the visuals coming in earlier this evening as the cyclone made a landfall with heavy rain and winds lashing the Gujarat Saurashtra coast. Let's go straight across to our reporters who are literally there on ground zero. Brijesh Doshi is in Dwarka, Ashutosh Mishra, Mandvi. I hope, of course, both of you are very safe above all else. First you, Brijesh, you are in Dwarka. Tell us what you are seeing around you. Kya dikh raha hai? What are you seeing?
See, right now I'm at Dwarka. I'm reporting from the same spot from last 4 hours and the situation is not changed a little bit. The wind is gusty. Now the only change is that the rain is here. So now a dual effect, the gusty wind and as well as the rainy atmosphere. So this is the difficulties people will face once the cyclone hits the land area. So cyclone has hit the,
no reports of any death. No reports of any deaths and casualties so far. People have been evacuated safely.
More than 1 lakh people have been evacuated from the 8 districts, and the most people who have been evacuated from the Kutch area, Kutch district, more than 50,000 have been evacuated from the lowland areas. So more than 1 lakh people have been evacuated. So right now there is no report of the casualty or the human death at this moment. But it will, the picture will be clear after tomorrow morning because the landfall process will continue till next 6 hours. So we have to wait for next 24 hours to get the actual or the factual reports of the human casualty or the damage has been done to the port area. So at this moment there is no casualty in Dwarka as well.
Okay, we've got also Ashutosh Mishra and Mandvi. Now remember, Mandvi along the Saurashtra coast, and we'll show you a map in a moment, was also affected by a major cyclone many years ago. This time all precautions taken, all people in and around the coastal areas have been evacuated. Ashutosh?
Yes, Rajdeep, and as you mentioned, this has a history of a severe cyclone. So perhaps the lesson were learned by, in recent past, where these activities have taken place in the coastal Gujarat. So clearly all preventive measures, Rajdeep, were taken, but since this morning we are only seeing the intermittent heavy rainfall, heavy downpour, along with the gusty wind. And as it is predicted, since the process of landfall has already underway, this will complete maybe by midnight. But what is more a matter of concern for the particular Mandvi region is, Rajdeep, right behind me you see these, this is really scary, and by midnight when the process will complete, the eye of the storm, which is around 120 kilometers from the radius of this coastal line of Mandvi, it will take another 3 to 4 hours after completing process for the peak impact of this wind velocity here to hit the coastal line, and that will be the same time when there is another high tide expected. So that will potentially not bring only a significant damage to the public asset, but simultaneously there is a threat of waterlogging and flood-like situation in the lowline areas. But that was anticipated. In fact, all the agencies and administration carried out a risk assessment process, and by following that, peoples were evacuated from the worst affected areas, from the lowline areas. But for now, the power is snapped all across the city. We have taken shelter near a private hospital. In fact, they are using private generators to keep the operations in and the other medical facilities to continue. But for now, indeed, it's very scary outside. We have seen huge number of trees literally falling down. There are multiple poles,
connections all off,
and of course, since everything will happen by midnight.
Ashutosh, power connections have all been switched off. How are the medical? Power connections, medical facilities, are they still? How are the hospitals in and around operating at the moment?
Well, Rajdeep, in fact, I'm reporting right outside a private hospital. Power supply has been totally snapped all over the city, and this was a preventive measure. For example, in a low-lying area, if they continue to supply electricity and the poles literally falling down, that will potentially, bring more devastation, more disaster. And for example, these private hospitals, they are running with a heavy generators, heavy voltage generators. So these machineries are being used, and this is not only, also at the monitoring center of Nagar Palika and several crucial monitoring centers, they are using either the battery backups or the gensets with the diesel or multiple fuels. So only there are few places, including the emergency medical operations, emergency medical facilities, which are still running with their own power backup. Otherwise, entire city is totally blackout, totally dark. And of course, while morning, when people will wake up, they'll potentially see what kind of devastation has been triggered by this cyclone. Because ultimately the peak of it will hit only by the midnight, Rajdeep.
Okay, we'll keep a watch on that. You stay safe, Ashutosh and Mr. Doshi joining us there from ground zero. Let's therefore turn to an interview I did a short while ago with Rahul Kanwal. He's DG NDRF. His forces are right there on the ground as well. Appreciate your joining us, sir. The cyclone landfall on. Which areas do you think will face maximum impact? Which are the vulnerable areas, sir, at the moment?
Kutch district in Gujarat will probably bear the brunt of the cyclone fury, which is why the maximum number of NDRF teams and STRF teams are also deployed in that area. And along with that, other districts in Maharashtra will also get impacted.
But how prepared are you? We know that a number of forces are out there from the NDRF, state disaster management force as well. Now, Odisha has set an example, sir, with its attempt to create a zero casualty cyclone handling. Is the West Coast as prepared as the East is, sir?
Yes, I'm sure we are. We have been a part of the briefings which have happened over the past few days in preparation to face this natural disaster. And government of Gujarat has done their homework in great depth to the extent that the salt pen workers have been evacuated. The pregnant ladies have been transferred to the hospitals in case the delivery time is near and they get stuck during the cyclone. All the precautions that need to be taken about evacuating people have been taken. A lot of teams are in place to bring back normalcy as soon as possible once the cyclone passes. So all these things have been taken care of in great depth. So I think we are fully prepared.
What appears to have also happened is a massive evacuation exercise of people, sir, who live along the coastline. Nearly 90,000 people, according to one estimate, evacuated. Can you tell us a little bit more about those efforts, the number of people you have out on field, just to give a sense of the scale of magnitude of the work being done at the moment to rescue people?
Now the number of evacuated people has gone to more than 1 lakh, and we have 18 teams in place in Gujarat. Initially, we had planned to put 12 because that was the estimation which state government had given us, but we pumped in more teams, knowing that if we have reserves at hand, they would be useful in a worst case scenario. So we have 18 teams on ground from NDRF and 12 from the STRF.
By when do you think, Mr. Kanwal, can we say it is all clear that the cyclone has passed over, the worst is over? How long will that take, sir?
Difficult to do that. The cyclone has been moving at slightly varying speeds through today also. So now it's moving in at about 6 kilometers an hour, and it's still about 100 kilometers away from the possible point of landfall, which is between Mandvi and Karachi, little north of Jakhau port now. So slight change, it's shifted slightly north. As per the IMD forecast, it will pass away till about midnight. And immediately after that, the action of the response teams will start to bring back normalcy, clearing roads, restoring power, etc. So it depends on the speed of the passage, on the damage it causes, and then on the recovery phase as we will handle it as fast as possible.
You know, you just mentioned the challenge that you will face once the cyclone passes over around midnight. That is presumably when we will all get to know the real extent of damage being done. And you will need to plan rescue, relief, rehabilitation if needed. Is that the next big challenge? How prepared are you for that, to actually restore power, as you said, roads which are damaged? How long is this? Is this going to be a long haul over the next few days?
I think the whole process is challenging because the initial efforts go a long way in preventing loss of property and lives. The mitigation measures which were taken in the last few days will bear a lot of fruit, because if we have taken people out of harm's way, we will minimize the loss. It's one integrated thing which goes through from recovery phase and response to clear things up and bring back normalcy. But yes, right now we are in a wait and watch mode at location, at places which will get most impacted. And as soon as they start getting impacted, we will start doing our response to the best of our abilities and getting people out. If during cyclone hit also people have got stranded, we will still go and evacuate and rescue them. And yes, certainly after it passes, we need to get into action to bring back normalcy fast.
You know, Mr. Kanwal, in recent years, we've seen the number and frequency of cyclones in the Arabian Sea increasing. Do you think cyclone-prone areas on the western coast will now need more infrastructure for handling such natural events, especially in view of the rising number of cyclones in the west coast of the country?
That infrastructure is quite in place. Even now, Gujarat has moved the evacuated people about to over 1,500 shelters. So the number of shelters is not in shortage, and the evacuated people have been adjusted comfortably in those. The frequency of cyclones in Arabian Sea is less than Bay of Bengal. In spite of that, the infrastructure is good and is adequate even as of now, though we can keep looking at improvements based on experiences like this.
So would you say we have a more integrated system now in place that can meet these challenges from cyclones, whether it's on east or western coast? You've got a SOP that's fully in place now?
Yes, we have improved quite a lot over the last 2 decades since the super cyclone hit us in Odisha, which caused the loss of 10,000 lives. Now the loss of lives is much less, and every time when we handle a situation like that, we look at how lives were lost and try and bring in improvements. But compared to the earlier cyclones, the loss of life is down by 99%. It's only about 1% lives to the number of lives which used to be lost earlier that we are suffering now, and we'll try and bring that figure down as well.
Well, that's very reassuring. Mr. Kanwal, you've taken time off from your busy schedule monitoring what's been happening on the ground to join us. Thanks very much for joining me. Let's hope and pray that the situation normalizes as soon as possible. Let's turn from the cyclone in the Gujarat coast to the cyclone in the national capital, where the wrestlers' protest today took another twist, as the Delhi police submitted a 1,500-page charge sheet framing charges against the accused BJP MP and Wrestling Federation boss Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. However, in the assault case of a minor, the police has submitted a cancellation report claiming that the victim has changed her statement. What this means effectively is that the serious charges of sexual assault against a minor have been dropped. Does that mean that Brij Bhushan Saran Singh has got away? Well, a political showdown has already erupted over the case once again. We'll look at that in a moment. First, take a look at the story today.
Months of angry protests, agony and street fights later, Indian wrestling heroes' demand for justice is met. Some would say halfway. The Delhi police on Thursday filed a 1,500-word charge sheet in the Rouse Avenue court against the Wrestling Federation of India President Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. The WFI chief is charged with sexual harassment, outraging the modesty of a woman and stalking under various sections of the Indian Penal Code. The police, in a separate move, have also filed a cancellation report in the Patiala House Court in the POCSO case against Brij Bhushan. In this 550-page cancellation report, the police claim they've not found any corroborative evidence in the case. The police say the minor wrestler had levelled allegations of sexual assault against Brij Bhushan out of anger. The report says the complainant changed her statements before the magistrate. The police have recommended closure of charges under POCSO or the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act against Brij Bhushan.
रेस्लर्स की कंप्लेंट पर केस रजिस्टर हुआ था, उसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंप्लीट हुई है, तो उसके बाद हमने इसमें चार्जशीट है कंसर्न कोर्ट में फाइल कर दी है। इसमें सेक्शन 354, 354A और D इनके तहत हमने ब्रिज भूषण है उनके खिलाफ और मिस्टर विनोद तोमर हैं उनके खिलाफ भी 109, 354A, 354 एंड 506 IPC में चार्जशीट दाखिल कर दी है।
The charge sheet provides some comfort for champion wrestlers Bajrang Punia, Sakshi Malik, Vinesh Fogart and their supporters, though their main demand of arresting Brij Bhushan is not met so far. The opposition has accused the Narendra Modi government of protecting Brij Bhushan, who is accused of sexual assault.
एक अवयस्क लड़की इतने बड़े आदमी के खिलाफ पॉक्सो की शिकायत दर्ज करती है, यौन शोषण का आरोप लगाती है और फिर सारा तंत्र, सारी पुलिस, इस देश की सत्ता, इस देश की सरकार, सरकार के मंत्री, सरकार के सांसद मिलकर एक तरफ उस लड़की के खिलाफ खड़े हो जाते हैं और संरक्षण बृजभूषण शरण सिंह को दिया जाता है और उस लड़की को गलत साबित करने पर लोग तुल जाते हैं।
सेक्सुअल असॉल्ट के केसेस दर्ज होने के बाद जब अभियुक्त को गिरफ्तार ना किया गया हो, उसको जमानत मिली या नहीं मिली वो बात की बात है। ये पहला अवसर है जब किसी देश विदेश की नहीं, दुनिया भर की जो नामी ग्रामी पहलवान हैं उनके द्वारा FIR दर्ज की गई हो और अभियुक्त गिरफ्तार ना हो।
Even as a political showdown has begun over the police's handling of the POCSO case, the decision to close the case is to be taken by the court.
The charge sheet has been filed within the 15th June deadline as set by the sports minister, with the Delhi police now pulling off a balancing act by filing charge sheet in one case and cancellation report in the other. How the wrestlers react to this remains to be seen. With Shreya Chatterjee and camera person Alok from New Delhi, this is Srishti Ojha, India Today.
So let's raise the big questions tonight. The wrestlers' plea for justice, has it really been heard finally? Will Brij Bhushan face justice or not? Have the charges against him been watered down? Is Brij Bhushan a villain or is he a victim? Let's raise those questions. Anjali Bhardwaj is a social activist who's been actively involved in supporting the women wrestlers' cause. Amitabh Sinha is a lawyer at the Supreme Court associated with the BJP. Neeraj Kumar is former Commissioner, Delhi Police. Aman Lekhi is a senior advocate and former Additional Solicitor General. First to you, Anjali Bhardwaj, your first reactions on the fact that a 1,500-page voluminous charge sheet is filed based on the complaints made by the women wrestlers on sexual harassment, but the POCSO charges have been subject to a cancellation notice by the police because the victim in this case changed her statement.
Yes, Rajdeep, I think the cancellation report in the POCSO case is indeed very, very unfortunate. It has been very clear that there was a need to immediately arrest the accused, given the fact that he is politically powerful, the huge imbalance of power. On the one hand, the accused, who is a member parliament, he's a Bahubali, it's very well known, and he was also the chief of the federation. And on the other hand, this minor and these wrestlers, these players. So what should have been done was not done. And it is something that has caused considerable apprehensions. And I think those apprehensions have been proven correct today.
No, but the statement was, no, 1 minute, Anjali Bhardwaj, you're saying that, are you saying that Brij Bhushan Saran Singh should have been arrested on the 5th of May? And I'm putting now the timeline. On the 5th of May, the Delhi police recorded statements of 7 wrestlers who alleged harassment. On June 3rd, Home Minister Amit Shah met the wrestlers part midnight. On June 6th, it emerged that the minor wrestler has given a new statement, withdrawn the charges. The original charges were made on the 5th of May by the minor. Are you saying that right on the 5th of May itself, Brij Bhushan Saran Singh, the moment the minor claimed that she had been sexually harassed and a complaint was filed under POCSO, he should have been arrested right away without inquiry?
Given the huge imbalance of power in this particular case, Rajdeep, and the fact that POCSO has been invoked, I think it should have been the duty of the Delhi police to issue notice and arrest Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, because there was a huge fear of intimidation and tampering with evidence. What has happened today actually corroborates and shows that these apprehensions were not ill-founded. For the police to file a cancellation report, we know how the father of the daughter has gone on record. He has reportedly said that he acted under pressure. There was intimidation. His entire family has been intimidated. So I think this just shows complete failure on the part of the police to actually act in the manner that it should have, to protect that minor and to make sure that justice was delivered. I also want to say one more thing, Rajdeep. The minister called the wrestlers and said that by the 15th of June, the probe will be completed. How did the minister know that?
You're referring to Anurag Thakur here.
Yes, and nobody other than the police, the investigating officer, can estimate when a probe can be completed. This, according to not just us, but even retired Supreme Court judges, shows that there was interference in the process of investigation. I think there has also been a very strong demand for a court-monitored probe that should have happened. And the fact that the entire machinery seems to be protecting the accused is really sending out a terrible signal to the women of this country and to the people of this country about the state of the rule of law. We are very, very clear that in a situation like this, where there is sexual harassment, sexual assault that is being, the allegations are of that against such a powerful person, leaving him out and not arresting him has today led to the situation that we are at. And
let me stop you. Let me stop you because, you made the point. You believe that this case, there has been undue pressure, intimidation on the minor's family. Her father has gone on record. He has given interviews to Hindi newspapers and suggested that he was fearful for his daughter's safety. However, in the actual FIR, it is suggested that the girl has now, in the cancellation notice, has made another statement saying she was targeting Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh for other reasons. I want to understand from you, Amitabh Sinha, do you agree that this timeline, दाल में कुछ काला है या आप मानते हैं? April, first of all, it takes 3 months and Supreme Court intervention for the Delhi police to file an FIR on the complaints of these women wrestlers, many of whom have represented the country only on April 28th. Then you have Amit Shah ji meeting the wrestlers on June 3rd, and now on June 6th, 7th, minor records new statement, and on 15th, the charge sheet has opted to give a cancellation notice on the minor charge. दाल में कुछ काला है, कहीं ना कहीं कुछ प्रेशर तो हुआ है.
Rajdeep, first of all, I would like to lodge my protest with your introduction, which you have introduced to me, to your viewers about me, that BJP associated with BJP. So I must tell you that you should withdraw this line. It was unnecessary, and I was invited, and I had asserted that
no, you are not associated with the BJP. Are you telling me you are not associated with the BJP, Mr. Sinha?
No. No, I am here as a lawyer.
Okay.
Then I can tell you also that you are associated with some political party. This is unfair.
Okay.
I am here as a lawyer, as a practicing lawyer.
So please tell me now, as a practicing lawyer, you tell me दाल में कुछ काला है.
यहाँ आता है. नहीं मुझे हाँ दाल में कुछ काला है. ये इंट्रोडक्शन दाल में कुछ काला है, ये नहीं करना चाहिए आपको, राजदीप. मैं आपका सम्मान करता हूँ, हम लोग इतने पुराने मित्र हैं. Why you should unnecessarily?
ठीक है, आप बताइए.
अब मैं आता हूँ उस मुद्दे पे. What you wanted to know from me?
Yes.
हाँ, मेरा पॉइंट है, अभी आज की डेट में जो स्थितियां आपने जो पूछा है, मैं उसी के आधार पे कहना चाहता हूँ कि एक जैसे शेर ने बकरे को कहा, पुरानी कहानी है कि तेरे दादा ने गाली दी थी तो उसने कहा नहीं, उस समय दादाजी नहीं थे, फिर नहीं पिता ने गाली दी थी, नहीं तूने गाली दी थी, मैं तुझे खाऊंगा। अभी भारद्वाज मैडम थी, उन्होंने कहा कि कैसे कह दिया स्पोर्ट्स मिनिस्टर ने कि 15 जून तक इस चार्जशीट फाइल होगी। प्रेशर था कि एट अर्लीस्ट फाइल होना चाहिए। तो आपस की एक मीटिंग में जो कई घंटे चली, उसमें जैसा मुझे बताया गया कि उसमें प्रेशर बनाया गया और वो लोग जो कि स्ट्रीट्स के थ्रू जस्टिस चाह रहे थे, मैं इस बात से असहमत हूँ। यदि जस्टिस मिलना है तो उसका एक लीगल प्रोसेस होता है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी उसको कहा। यहाँ पर जब यदि प्रेशर में
अरे अगर सर अगर वो रास्ते पर नहीं जाते तो कंप्लेंट
लेटेस्ट बाय 15 चार्जशीट फाइल हो जाएगी।
पुलिस तो तैयार भी नहीं थी कंप्लेंट फाइल करने के लिए।
आई थिंक दिस इज हाईली अनप्रोफेशनल। नहीं, चार्जशीट फाइल करने के लिए
नहीं, पुलिस तो कंप्लेंट भी नहीं फाइल कर रही थी।
अनुराग जी के थ्रू दी गई थी। आपकी आवाज ब्रेक हो रही है, सॉरी, मैं कुछ अपनी बात खत्म कर दूं
जी।
माई पॉइंट इज वेरी क्लियर कि जो भी हुआ इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री हुआ। जो स्पोर्ट्स है, स्पोर्ट्स के सेक्टर में जितना भी ये एक गेम हुआ है जिसमें स्पोर्ट्स का नाम खराब हो, इंडियन स्पोर्ट्स का नाम इंटरनेशनल एरेना में, मैं मानता हूँ पर्सनली, इसमें कोई पॉलिटिकल मेरा अप्रोच नहीं है। मैं एज ए सिटीजन मानता हूँ कि ये एक टूल किट गैंग काम कर रहा है और वो इंडियन स्पोर्ट्स को मलाइन करने की कोशिश है। क्योंकि मैं आपको एक बात बताऊं,
no, sir, this toolkit gang, are you telling me that Vinesh Fogart, Sangeeta Fogart, Bajrang Punia, all part of toolkit gang? ये कब तक चलेगा toolkit gang? कोई कुछ बोले toolkit gang?
Don't take names. Anybody can become toolkit member of, I mean that tool of the toolkit. मैं क्या कहना चाहता हूँ, सुनिए पहले धैर्य से। मैं किसी के ऊपर में पर्सनल कंप्लेंट वो नहीं देना चाहता, कोई अटैक।
अरे ये महिलाएं हैं।
मेरा पॉइंट ये है,
You think it's easy for a woman to say that she has been sexually harassed?
अच्छी बात है।
By a powerful man to call them a toolkit gang? ये वर्ड, ये सही वर्ड नहीं है आपका।
एक चीज सब मैं इंसिस्ट करता हूँ, yes, because the entire process was hyped not in India but outside India also, और उसमें विदेशी जो प्लेयर्स हैं वो इन्वॉल्व हो गए, यहाँ के पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज इन्वॉल्व हो गई, जो हमेशा से ये मानती है कि भारत को मेलाइन करना ही उनका सबसे एकमात्र उद्देश्य है। और मैं लास्ट में एक चीज कहना चाहूंगा, लास्ट में, कि देखिए इस सब चीजों में आज मैं मानता हूं कि जो सबसे बड़ा उनका प्लान था कि पॉक्सो एक्ट अपने आप में डिमोलिश हो गया। मुझे ये जानकारी है कि वो उसमें उस बच्ची का जो भी जिस भी लड़की ने उस पे कंप्लेंट फाइल की थी, उसको विड्रॉ करने के कई फैक्टर्स हैं। अब उसको आप चैनल में यदि दोहरवाएंगे तो उस बच्ची का अपना जो बेइज्जती होगी। मुझे जो मिली है जानकारी कि उसके आधार पे कि वो लड़की जो है उसके स्कूल के सर्टिफिकेट के हिसाब से शी इज नॉट अ माइनर। तो इसीलिए बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं।
Okay, so you're saying that Brijbhushan, okay,
that is more important.
Okay, now you have made your point. And let me go to Neeraj Kumar, because police, as a police officer, Neeraj Kumar, look at the police's role. The wrestlers go on protest in January. It requires a Supreme Court intervention for the police to even register the complaint, eventually file an FIR. There is a complaint made under the POXO Act at that time. The police doesn't act on that and query. Does not query Mr. Brijbhushan Saran Singh for weeks, although under the POXO Act, technically he can be arrested right away. Then 5 weeks later, the complaint is retracted. The father has gone on record saying there was a fear factor. Please, did the police give enough time for whoever wanted to intimidate perhaps the young woman wrestler so that Mr. Brijbhushan Saran Singh got away? Are you satisfied with the role the Delhi police has played?
The short answer to your question, Rajdeep, is sadly, no, I'm not. Today, I tried my level best to get information from my colleagues on these very points, but they were not willing to share the information with me. Therefore, I hold no brief for them today. I'm sorry to say this. I would have very much liked to put across the Delhi police point of view. In the absence of any information or any briefing from any one of my colleagues handling the matter, I'm unable to do so.
But but prima facie, are you satisfied with the way this case has been handled?
I have already told you that no. My short answer to you is I'm not. Because the impression that has gone is that even to get a case registered, you have to approach the Supreme Court for a direction
right,
for the process of law to begin.
Okay,
Therefore, I'm not satisfied.
I think as one of the leading police officers of the country, for you to say that you're not satisfied with the way the police has handled this is, I think, an important statement which I think should be registered right away. Aman Lekhi, your view as a senior advocate, former additional solicitor general, are you satisfied with the way the law has played out in this case, or is there a fear that when you have a powerful person involved, he will always get away?
Well, Rajdeep, I feel that the process has been disgraced, and whatever disparagement which is there in public domain about the police conduct is wholly justified. It has required less for the police to arrest, and in this particular case, the nature of the allegations, the number of people making the allegations, the seriousness of the allegations, the person against whom the allegation is made, and the integrity of investigation required the police to act differently, the way the police usually acts when it's dealing with people not as well ensconced as the accused in the instant case is. That said, some of my colleagues have talked about toolkit. Now, toolkit is a different issue altogether. I want to mark 2 points. One, insofar as the age is concerned, I mean, it's ludicrous to say that there's an affidavit about age, because in wrestling there are categories, and there are age categories, and for age categories there has to be age verification, and that is part of the accreditation process. So to verify the age, you don't need to have any elaborate investigation, because you're dealing with the wrestling federation, and insofar as the participation in that category is concerned, that itself should be decisive, unless of course you say that there's been some forgery in the documentation which is there, for which the liability will be with the Wrestling Federation of India, firstly. Secondly, insofar as the statement is concerned, mainly because a complainant withdraws the statement, doesn't in any way exonerate an accused, and doesn't absolve the police of the responsibility to investigate, because the efficacy of that particular allegation and the need for investigation does not rest solely on a statement, because as the statement is concerned, the statement can be made and withdrawn, and the withdrawal of the statement may have nothing to do with the veracity of what is being stated. So the obligation on the police to investigate is independent of that particular statement, so the police cannot rely upon that statement. This is number 2. Number 3, and very significantly, insofar as the father is saying, now the father is saying intimidation. When the father is saying intimidation, that itself is a marker in the context in which the whole thing is unfolded, because as you very correctly pointed out, there was a delay even in the registration of the FIR. Because when there's a delay in registration of the FIR, the battle of perception is lost. I'm not saying that the police did it willfully, but the question is, it is reasonable to presume that the police was reluctant. And that reluctance is absolutely evident in the delay in registration of the FIR itself.
Right.
Now, when you choose not to register an FIR, and therefore for that reason are reluctant to investigate, then insofar as the bona fides of the process is concerned, that become inherently suspect. And your willingness to actually go after the accused is consequently affected. Now, once that is the understanding of the process, then the exoneration by the police is in any way going to be suspect.
So you're saying that the court can look at this exoneration, the court could see the exoneration as suspect based on the fact that the witness, that the minor's father has claimed that he was intimidated. The court can relook at it. Am I correct?
No, not just that. As far as the court, because this is off the record. Now, what the court can do, and this is a very pertinent point, the court is not bound by what the police says. Because as far as the jurisdiction of the court is concerned, is independent opinion of the police. Notwithstanding the police saying there is no case made out, the court can yet disagree. And the court can disagree and take cognizance, taking into account the totality of the cases, 1. The court can order a further investigation, 2. The court can conduct an inquiry or have an inquiry made by another magistrate, 3. Or the court can take cognizance of the complaint itself. So as far as this particular issue is concerned, that's the worth of our rights, and insofar as the substance of whatever we claim to be aggrieved by is in the domain of examination by the court, and is not in any way controlled by the opinion of the police.
Okay, I take your point, and that's an important...
Mainly because, and this is what I read somewhere...
That's an important point you're making, that it is not the opinion of the police. The court can take cognizance of the complaints that were filed in the period, the manner in which it was done. You know, Anjali Bhardwaj, right through this case, I've heard people saying, where is the evidence? You know, what is the evidence they have? We have now got witnesses that include referees coming on record. We've got others from the Wrestling Federation, other women who have corroborated what some of these girls, wrestlers have said. 1,500-page charge sheet. Do you believe that that original charge sheet made by the women wrestlers will stand the test in a court of law? How confident are you that the evidence will stick?
Ajdeep, what we've been seeing is the police asking for video evidence, for audio evidence, all sorts of things, including trying to recreate the scene of crime, and at a time when Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh was reportedly present at his residence at the scene of crime. So I think this is a very important question. It is very clear that in cases like these, the kind of allegations that have been made, what is the kind of evidence, the photo or audio or video evidence that the police expects to get? Is anybody going to do this in public? Is there somebody going to be making a video of this? Are these women expected to do a video or an audio recording while they are being molested and while they are being stalked? I think it's very clear that in this particular case, we are not going the way in which we are expected to. The police is not going the way in which it is mandated to. In cases like this, a very clear pattern where not one, not two, 7 women are saying that there is a clear pattern of molestation, of sexual harassment and assault. I think there is absolutely no reason. And I really hope that the court will go into the kind of evidence that they have already given in their statement. Their statement should be the evidence. They are saying where it happened, how it happened, they're giving details. All of these are verifiable facts. And just look at the kind of imbalance of power, how it's stacked up. And Rajdeep, I also want to say here that this entire thing about toolkit, I think it's most unfortunate, because as it is bad enough that the system seems to be protecting the accused just because they're politically powerful. And then women are having to do all of this despite such stringent laws existing, the POCSO, other criminal law amendments and so on after Nirbhaya that have happened. Why was there a need for women to come to the street?
I take your point, ma'am. I take your point. I am the father of a young daughter as well, and I ask you, Amitabh Sinha, I don't know whether you have a young daughter, but आप मुझे बताइए, ये महिला रेसलर्स हैं, 1 नहीं 2 नहीं 7 हैं, रेफरीज हैं, कई लोगों ने बयान दिए हैं, आप सबको मानते हैं झूठ, और ब्रिज भूषण शरण सिंह जिन्होंने कैमरा पर मर्डर चार्ज के लिए कन्फेस किया है, आप उसको मानते हैं सही। आज इस प्रोग्राम में कोई बीजेपी का ऑफिशियल स्पोक्सपर्सन भी नहीं आना चाहता था। आप मुझे बताइए आज क्या कहीं ना कहीं इस ब्रिज भूषण को बचाओ, आप टूल किट की बात करते हैं, मैं तो उल्टा कहूंगा, ये तो एक जो टूल किट है वो तो ब्रिज भूषण को बचाने में लगी है, पूरी सिस्टम जो है, यंत्रणा जो है उसे बचाने में लगी है। क्या आप मानते हैं? आप महिलाओं को बिलीव नहीं करोगे, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ की बात जो करते हैं वो महिलाओं को बिलीव नहीं करेंगे, लेकिन एक बाहुबली को बिलीव करेंगे। क्या ये सही है, आपको लगता है? व्हाट इज द मैसेज?
Rajdeep, I can very well understand your emotionally charged statements and the observations. मैं आपकी बात को पूरी तरीके से समझ रहा हूँ, और जो बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ और ये सारे जो अभी तक के स्लोगन्स हैं वो मैं बहुत ध्यान से सुनता रहा। मैंने वकील होने के नाते, बीइंग अ लॉयर, आई हैव गॉन थ्रू सो मेनी केसेस लाइक दिस। अभी मैं अपनी पर्सनल, यदि मुझे वो एक मिनट का मौका दें, आई हैव हैंडल्ड अ केस in a vacation bench of Supreme Court very recently, only last week, and the case was simultaneously charged with rape and dowry, both. उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज ने कहा कि हाउ बोथ द चार्जेस कैन बी रन टुगेदर, रेप और साथ में डॉरी केस था, जो कि द बॉय एंड द गर्ल वेर नॉट मैरिड। मैं कई चीज़ें ऐसा करता हूं कि इसमें जो लॉज हैं आज इंडियन सिस्टम में, उसमें जो
सर मैं आपकी बात को, मैं आपको सीधा सवाल पूछ रहा हूं, क्या आपको लगता है सब कुछ झूठ है, ये सब लोग झूठे हैं और केवल ब्रिजभूषण शरण सिंह सही बोल रहा है?
नहीं, ऐसा मैं नहीं,
मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूं।
मैंने नहीं कहा। राजदीप, राजदीप धैर्य रखिए, मैं बहुत गंभीर और संवेदनशील विषय पे बात कर रहा हूं आपसे। आपने यंत्रणा शब्द का प्रयोग किया, यंत्रणा शब्द मेरे साथ भी लागू होता है। मैं एक चीज बताना चाहता हूं आपको, देखिए ऐसी स्थिति में मैंने किसी को निर्दोष नहीं और किसी को दोषी नहीं माना है। चार्जशीट फाइल हुई है, चार्जशीट में सबसे बड़ा जो पॉक्सो कहा जा रहा था, अभी आई विथ ऑल ड्यू रेस्पेक्ट टू अमन लेखी, वी आर कलीग्स, see in this situation if POXO act is being considered by the court also, then also this contradictory statement and intimidation charges, देखिए मैंने कभी इंटिमिडेशन चार्जेस को नहीं सुना है, लेकिन यदि उसमें और ज्यादा डीप जाएंगे देन द एज सर्टिफिकेट विल कम अप, और उसकी वजह से फिर काउंटर कई केसेज हो सकते हैं उस लड़की पे जिसने कि अपने एज को छुपा के एक गलत स्टेटमेंट दिया। मैं इस पे अभी नहीं ज्यादा जाना चाहता। दूसरी बात, जो इतना टाइम लगा, नीरज कुमार जी ऑल्सो इज अ रेस्पेक्टेबल पर्सन फॉर मी, I know him personally, but he is saying that he is not happy with the Delhi Police Act. I must try to remind him that when that blast case, a terrorist blast case had happened and Delhi Police was being charged, he was I think a special CP or something. I personally tried to help him with entire opinion mobilization in favor of Delhi Police, because Delhi Police is the safest scapegoat. Everybody is trying to just hit him. Neeraj Kumar ji was Commissioner of Police. मैं इतना कहना चाहता हूँ कि 125 witnesses
everyone in the system दूध से धुले हुए हैं, everyone in the system दूध से धुले हुए हैं।
No, I am sorry,
पर उंगली उठाता है वो टूल किट होता है।
I will conclude. I might be sounding a devil's advocate, लेकिन मैं इतना कहना चाहता हूं कि 125 विटनेसेस एग्जामिन करने थे, कोई आसान काम नहीं था, और 125 में 25 वेर फॉर द चार्जशीट एंड 100 वेर अगेंस्ट द चार्जशीट। मैं इतना कहना चाहता हूं, और लास्टली मैं इतना कहना चाहता हूं, बेटियों की इतनी बात करते हो, 2006 में राहुल गांधी के खिलाफ रेप केस फाइल हुआ, रेप केस, और रेप केस का इन्वेस्टिगेशन क्या हुआ, उस परिवार का क्या हुआ, वो आप लोगों को चिंता नहीं है कि वो सुकन्या सिंह का केस क्या हुआ।
Sir, the judge case has gone. Sir, in that case, the judge found the evidence was. Sir, this whataboutery has to stop. In that case, the judge very clearly found that the evidence did not go by the scrutiny of law, was not verifiable. Actually, find the complainant. My limited point at the moment is these are Olympic athletes. These are Olympic athletes who have represented the country, and you don't believe them.
Rajdeep, there was no FIR. I am telling you, there was no FIR. So you are not concerned about the FIR at that time.
Okay, I will leave it there. I am not going to engage in whataboutery. As I said, I am also the father of a daughter, and I will always believe prima facie, when 7 people come up with the kind of evidence that they have. The fact is the police could have investigated this far more thoroughly. For now, I will leave it to the courts to decide. मैं judge नहीं हूँ. I am an observer of what has happened over the last 6 months, and I frankly hang my head in shame at times at the way the system in this country operates when it comes to sexual harassment of women. Let's leave it there. Let's turn to Manipur, where again there is reason for us to feel troubled. Over 45 days now since Manipur has been rocked with violence. The northeast state continues to witness fresh spells of the violence. A state minister's house was burned down last night. 9 more people have been killed in the fresh clashes on Tuesday and Wednesday. The Manipur government has extended the internet clampdown. The question is, will the centre break its silence?
It is now over 45 days since Manipur has been on the boil. A fresh spell of violence has rocked the strife-torn northeastern state. First, the house of Newstrack Kickpin, the lone female minister in the current Manipur cabinet. Her house was burned down on Wednesday. Newstrack is one of the 10 Kuki MLAs who raised the demand for a separate administration. In another spell, miscreants opened fire, leaving at least 9 people dead and 10 injured in Khamenlok village.
Monitoring agency should monitor it whether all those activists are in their designated camp or their weapons are deposited or not. If it is certain and if there is intact in all the designated camp, there should not be any kind of gunfire.
Several houses have also been burnt down in Khamenlok village. Many sustained injuries in clashes at Gobajang, Tamenglong district. In the last 24 hours, firearms, ammunitions and different types of bombs have been recovered from Tengnaupal and Imphal East districts. Meanwhile, the Manipur government has now extended the internet clampdown in the state for another 5 days.
The biggest sign that the law and order situation in the state of Manipur is fast deteriorating is the fact that the East Imphal administration has issued a notice on 14th of January announcing a curtailment of the relaxation of curfew hours from earlier, which was 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. to now, that is 5 a.m. to just 9 a.m. of about 4 hours. The streets of Manipur and Imphal that had gone silent immediately after the violence took place in the state are again seeing rampage, and the state government seems to be clueless on how peace will prevail in the state once again. In New Delhi, Akshay Dongre for India Today.
Think about it, 45 days and the violence has not let up. We need a call for peace, for more proactive action. Manipur should be the focus of the Home Ministry at the moment. Let's leave it there. It's a major security challenge, no easy solutions at the moment. For now, that's it on the news. I leave you with the other big challenge that our forces are facing bravely this time on the ground, which is ensuring that people are safe and secure in the cyclone-hit areas of the Gujarat coast. I leave you tonight as that cyclone makes its landfall along that coast with prayers for the people of Gujarat to stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.
Where the software engineer meets the smart market analyst, meets the talented photographer to create the big dream. The world comes together at Sharda University. So where are you?
Two advertisements within a space of 2 days reveal the tension within the BJP Shiv Sena coalition in Maharashtra. This ad that appeared on Tuesday featured Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chief Minister Eknath Shinde. It said, Modi in Rashtra, Shinde in Maharashtra. There was no mention of Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. It also claimed that Shinde was more popular than his deputy, based on a recent survey by a private agency. The advertisement caused much resentment in the BJP. Shiv Sena soon got into damage control mode, clarifying the ad was issued by a supporter of Shinde. A day later, a new advertisement appeared, this time featuring photos of all leaders including Shinde and Fadnavis.
शिंदे जे उत्कृष्ट आहेत त्यांनी देवेंद्रजी त्या ॲडव्हर्टाईजमध्ये कंपॅरिझन करणे हे ज्यांनी कोणी केलं असं मला वाटतं. एकनाथजी काही एवढ्या लहान मनाचे नाही आहेत. एकनाथजी काही लहान मनाचे नाही आहेत. एक मोठ्या विचाराचा मोठ्या मनाचा माणूस आहे. एकनाथ शिंदेला जे मी बघतो ते कधी अशा लहान विचारात वावरत नाही. पण ज्यांनी कोणी केली आहे त्यांनी देवेंद्रशी कंपॅरिझन एकनाथजी सोबत करणे हे थोडंसं त्या ठिकाणी अचंबित करणारं होतं.
The damage control, however, has not yet ironed out the differences between the two leaders. The Deputy Chief Minister has skipped events where he was supposed to share dais with Chief Minister, citing health reasons. Fadnavis, however, continued with his regular meetings at the Shahayadri Guest House in South Mumbai. With Ritvik Bhalekar, Bureau Report, India Today.
So, Sakshi, there are a couple of things that are working very well for MRF. If you think it's a 50% return from 1 year ago, in this century alone, suppose we take 2000 as the starting point, I'm sure you must have been in third or fourth standard then. From then on till now, the stock has been a 100-bagger, which means that MRF in 2000 was quoting at 1,000 rupees, and in 2023 it's at above a lakh. So it's gone up 100 times in a span of 23 years. And primarily the reason behind that is a very low liquidity in the stock, which basically means that one, the price ticket is very high, so retail investors generally don't come in, and institutional investors are, from what we've heard on the street, very clear in the mind. Of course, the management also takes a lot of feedback from the market, and they're very clear. Don't split the share, don't reduce the face value, stick to what it is, ensure that there is little liquidity as possible, so that because of the lack of liquidity, the stock keeps on, have that additional momentum to go higher and higher, higher and higher. So in 2012, it was at 10,000. 2014, it was at 25,000. 2016, 15,000, 50,000. 2018, 75,000. And 2023, we are at 1 lakh. Let's see what happens in 2030.
Right, absolutely. But, are you actually now looking at a 2 lakh rupee target at all? Is that still feasible to think, or is it still a very, very far off thing that one can imagine?
So, Sakshi, 2 points really. I don't think so. This is a point to enter the stock. Let's be very, very clear. The market is very, very overheated. And end of the day, MRF has an excellent brand, but it's a little on the higher side as far as valuations are concerned. But for those who have the stock, absolutely do not exit. And those who wish to buy, even at these 6 digits, I would just say wait and let it correct a bit. If it does, you're lucky. If it doesn't, then well, you were never a part of the rally, and you never are. So what can be done? But I don't think so. This is the time to jump onto the bandwagon. It's extremely overheated. If you look at, the momentum, the price is above short, medium, and long-term moving averages. We've seen increasing volume, but it's very, very risky unless you're a very smart trader to come into the stock.
The WHO has put the spotlight on fake sugars, but artificial sweeteners has only been an ever-growing market in India, and outside increase in cases of diabetes and the growing burden of obesity world over has ensured that people turn to alternatives. The demand for low-calorie food and beverages have contributed to the market's expansion in India. For example, sugar-free Zydus Wellness's artificial sweetener brand witnessed double-digit growth last year in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic as consumers opted for a healthier lifestyle, shows data from 2021. The Indian artificial sweetener market is projected to reach a value of Indian rupee 12.23 billion by 2023, growing at a CAGR of 3.4% during the forecast period. Think about it. Stevia and other sweeteners are found in 1 million products. Colas, juices, chewing gum, chocolates, and everything that is being sold as sugar-free. It clearly has grown way beyond just tabletop sweeteners. In India, the artificial sweetener market has witnessed significant growth over the past decade. On a global scale, the market for artificial sweeteners has also experienced substantial growth. The global artificial sweetener market was valued at approximately $19 billion in 2020 and is expected to reach $28.9 billion by 2028. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India said it's evaluating the new guideline issued last week by the World Health Organization, but strong advisories against them is unlikely. With Brijesh Vashisht, Bureau Report, India Today.
Co-powered by Bajaj Allianz Life Diabetic Term Plan. Tata Motors, new forever. Nippon India Mutual Fund, wealth sets you free.
Massive power cuts are being reported from across coastal Gujarat. Cyclone Biparjoy has hit land and high winds and heavy rains are lashing the coast. The landfall will continue till midnight tonight. Many trees have been uprooted, electricity poles and cables damaged. More than 100,000 people have already been evacuated to safety. But even as we speak, we have 15 Indian Navy and Coast Guard ships on red alert. 7 maritime reconnaissance and transport aircraft are on standby. Both the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy and Coast Guard helicopters are ready for any emergency response. But what's the latest situation on ground right now as Cyclone Biparjoy makes landfall, lashes across the coastal areas? Let's quickly cut across and listen in to the IMD chief.
As it was predicted earlier, it is moving northeast direction and it would cross Saurashtra Kutch and adjoining Pakistan coast between Karachi and Mandvi close to Jakhau port. By 11:30, the center of the cyclone will be over land. But landfall process will continue till midnight, and after that the intensity will decrease. At present, at the time of landfall which is going on, the wind speed is about 115 to 125 kmph, gusting to 135 kmph. By morning of 16th, it will further weaken. It will become a cyclone storm with wind speed of 75 to 85 kmph over the interior districts of Saurashtra. And by evening, it will weaken into a deep depression and wind speed will be 50 to 60 kmph over interior districts of Saurashtra. Our coastal districts, including Kutch, wind speed will be 40 to 50 kmph, gusting to 60 kmph by afternoon of 16th June. So therefore, the maximum impact of the strong wind will continue till morning of tomorrow, but peak impact will be up to midnight. The heavy rainfall will continue and it can lead to the inundation in the low-lying areas. The storm surge will continue. It could be about 2 meters for next 3 hours, and after that it will also reduce significantly as the cyclone will move inland.
So the worst is still not over. It's not as bad as was expected, and thankfully, but the worst is still not over. People are still being advised to remain indoors and not venture out of their homes or whatever location they may be. India Today, of course, has the biggest team of reporters on ground tracking the movement of Cyclone Biparjoy, whether it's Kutch, whether it's Saurashtra region. This is the area where the cyclone made landfall. India Today's cameras have captured the moment the storm hit.
This is the situation right now where the cyclone is just 100 kilometers away from the Gujarat coast and sea. it's difficult to stand here, but still, I'm trying to show you the visuals of the structure that has collapsed at the hotel right now. This is the this is just in front of the sea, and the breeze is going on, rain is there, everything is happening at this moment while the cyclone is 100 kilometers away. This is a severe situation right now here. The cable has broken, and all the electric poles are just at the risk because of this heavy and gutsty wind. So this kind of situation normally occurs when the heavy wind is there. So still the other part of the structure, they are trying to removing it from here.
जिस तरीके से लैंडफॉल होना शुरू हुआ है, चक्रवात का ये लैंडफॉल है। और देखिए हम मांडवी में मौजूद है, लैंडफॉल हो रहा है यहाँ से करीब 90 किलोमीटर दूर जखाऊ के इलाके में ये लैंडफॉल हो रहा है, लेकिन उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है वो मांडवी में भी देखने मिल रहा है और तेज़ हवाएं चल रही है। 110 के आसपास की जो रफ्तार है वो यहाँ पे तेज़ हवाओं की रफ्तार मानी जा रही है और उससे जो नुकसान होना है, लोगों को बार बार ये कहा जा रहा है कि लोग अपने घरों के अंदर रहे, घरों से बाहर ना निकले क्योंकि तेज़ हवाएं चलेगी और ये तेज़ हवाओं का जो दौर है ये देर रात तक चलेगा।
Let me also now quickly get you a report. India Today's Ashutosh Mishra is on ground zero. He sent us this report.
And the pre-impact of this landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy is already visible in parts of Kutch and Mandvi. Almost everything goes invisible now. The creeks, very rough ocean, and the wind speed. This is literally going to create havoc in this region of Kutch. In fact, even standing at this place is next to impossible now. I can see literally the weather has deteriorated. All machineries are on standby. Quick response team will be at its initial. In fact, look at the wind speed. It is very difficult to even face this. In Kutch Mandvi with Sanjay Kumar, I'm Ashutosh Mishra for India Today.
So electricity has been cut off. People are being asked to stay indoors. What's the latest situation right now? I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Brijesh Doshi joining us from ground zero. Incidentally, Brijesh is using the headlights of his car to be able to report since there is no electricity in this area. Brijesh, what's the latest right now?
Gaurav, we are right now at Dwarka, and as you said that we are reporting from the headlight of the car. So this is the situation right now here. I would like to ask my cameraman to show you the situation that there is no power here in the nearby building. So power cut is there all the in the district of Devbhoomi Dwarka from last 24 hours, and it will remain same for the next 24 hours as well because of the impact of Cyclone Biparjoy. So this is the ground reality right now. The heavy and gutsy rain splashes are there, so it's very difficult to stay here on the ground. This is from the last 4 hours. I'm reporting from here only. So this is the situation that's getting worsened hour by hour. So everything has been taken care by the government. Still, the effect or whatever the damage has been done by the cyclone will be we will be able to know by tomorrow evening only because of the power failure in most of the districts, and there won't be any kind of data shared right now. So we don't know which kind of casualties has been done or which kind of
has there been any preliminary damage assessment done? Any preliminary damage assessment? Any reports that have come in? Is the worst over or is the worst yet to come?
It's yet to come because right now everyone is praying that the landfall process must complete by it will completed by 12 a.m. So everyone is waiting for the process completion of the landfall. So that's why there is no report yet. There were trees were fallen, there were electric poles were fallen. So this kind of damage has been done in Dwarka as well. But there is no report of the human death yet. So actual picture of the casualty or the actual picture of the loss or damage in the damage it will be come by tomorrow. So tomorrow evening we will be able to know that how much this cyclone has damaged the Kutch area or the Devbhoomi Dwarka.
Okay, so which means before I let you go, which means some lessons have been learnt lessons have been learned from past cyclones, and thankfully more than 1 lakh people were shifted to safety. So fortunately no loss of life. Stay with me for a moment. Let me get our viewers the latest images that we've been getting and the most dramatic images from earlier today. So Cyclone Biparjoy, the landfall is still underway. It hit Saurashtra and the Kutch region. These are some images of Morbi of the moment Biparjoy made landfall. Wind speeds, according to the Met Department, touched 130 kilometers per hour. The landfall will continue till midnight. The town of Devbhoomi, Dwarka. Dramatic scenes witnessed as Cyclone Biparjoy swept away everything in its wake. People were seen struggling even to walk. Of course, the government advising people to remain indoors. The impact of the cyclonic winds was so strong that electricity poles fell in several areas. Street lights not available in most parts. There is no electricity in most parts of coastal Gujarat, and this is by design, and that is why people were asked to remain indoors. Several trees were uprooted, roads caved in Jamnagar. This is the west coast of Saurashtra, one of the worst impacted areas. Wind speeds are yet to peak. Now, close to 1 lakh people have already been evacuated, and there are at least 30 teams, 18 of the NDRF and 12 of the SDRF, along with teams of the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, the Air Force and the Coast Guard that are on standby to be deployed in to take care of any eventuality. And shifting focus to the other big story we're tracking here on India First. The Defence Acquisition Council today approved the procurement of the Hunter Killer, Predator and Sea Guardian drones for the Indian Armed Forces. The MQ-9 Reaper versions of these lethal drones were used to kill Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul. The United States and India are in negotiation for the procurement of these lethal unmanned combat aerial vehicles capable of long endurance, intelligence gathering, surveillance and reconnaissance mission. These drones are capable of precision strike using those deadly Hellfire missiles.
These lethal long-endurance, medium-altitude drones may soon be the new weapons in the arsenal of the Indian Armed Forces. The Defence Acquisition Council on Thursday gave its nod for the acquisition of the Sea Guardian drones. The Army, the Navy and the Air Force are looking at 10 drones each. The Indian Navy has already leased 2 MQ-9 Sea Guardians, the naval version of the drones, for intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance operations since 2020.
ये जो डील है ये हमारे देश की मैरीटाइम और ओवरऑल सिक्योरिटी के लिए बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि सर्वेलेंस सबसे ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण स्थान रखता है, क्योंकि हमें चाहिए कि हम अपनी एरिया में जहाँ एरिया ऑफ ऑपरेशंस है वहाँ निगरानी रख सकें, और ये क्षमता इस कैपेबिलिटी से हमें मिलती है.
The MQ-9A Reaper drones were used for the precision targeting of Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul. These unmanned combat aerial vehicles, apart from a number of sensors, cameras and radars, are also capable of carrying 4 Hellfire missiles for precision targeting of high-value targets. Both the Army and the Air Force are looking at these drones for high-risk operations to destroy strategic assets of the adversary without risking the lives of pilots. These hunter-killer drones can carry 4 Hellfire missiles. They're also capable of carrying 2 laser-guided bombs and 2 joint-action JDAMs. These drones can fly at an altitude of 40,000 feet and remain airborne for over 36 hours. They're also capable of loitering in the sky, scanning the ground below for the enemy. The MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones come with both maritime surveillance, reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The drones are capable of providing over-the-horizon surveillance and reconnaissance support both to warships and surface units. With increased Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean region, coupled with Chinese aggression along the LAC, these UCAVs will help keep an eye on the adversary both in the Himalayas and in the Indian Ocean region and take out strategic targets when needed. Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's try and make sense of this big deal that's being talked about so extensively. Joining me on India First is Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, former Ladakh Corps Commander and Distinguished Fellow at the Center for Land Warfare Studies. General, welcome on India First. Today is the 3rd anniversary of the Galwan face-off with China. Indian Navy already has Sea Guardians, of course, on lease. The DAC has given a nod for procurement of more drones. What's the message? What's the signal? And is this China specific?
So thank you for inviting me, Gaurav. The question is that we are upgrading and modernizing a force and seriously doing it. The fact of the matter is that we require drones very urgently. We've been seeking these drones for the last 8 years, and the negotiations have been going on for a very long time. At 2020, when all these things happened against us in eastern Ladakh, we were woefully short of equipment like drones, especially at the tactical level and also at the operational and strategic level. Navy had 2 drones, and the Navy has been flying 2 drones of the same variety on the seas, but then there were nothing available on the over the horizon picture for the line of actual control. Yes. So this makes a tremendous change and tremendous difference. The height it flies, the depth that it can look into. So as an ISR upgradation, and then ISR is being upgraded, continually in the course of last 3 years. But these are game changer. If the Army gets 10 and the Air Force also gets 10 and all are being utilized in tandem in one manner, then of course we have a vision deep inside the Tibetan Xinjiang, and it will be a game changer. And of course, it also provides a lethal aspect of it, the targets and the equipment that it carries across, the missiles it carries across, and the long ranges that it can fire off. So this is indeed, as they say, a game changer for us. It's a very expensive toy.
Yes.
But having said that, it was most essential for us to have this to get our ISR going the way we need to do so.
Fair enough. General, the proposed GE414 engines for LCA Mark II and the AMCA, the Predator drones, the M777 light howitzers, the new armored fighting vehicles, just join all these dots. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he travels to the United States, will be talking about almost all and more. So what's the message to an expansionist China? This is India arming itself for more than just Galwan-like border skirmishes.
So truthfully, and you rightly pointed out, look at what these 2 senior colonels said in the course in Shangri-La dialogue. They said Indians are the modernization industry not ready for it, and India's modernization is weak. And look what President Xi Jinping said in the course of this week in Mongolia, Inner Mongolia. He said we'd create a steel wall of defense or something like that.
Yes.
The steel wall of defense, he doesn't have to fight against Mongolia or any one of the other land borders. He's telling India that message was conveyed only with one country that, on which land borders that they have problems. So, it's a message being conveyed to us through many ways, being carried out by President Xi Jinping himself or the senior colonels that they had put across in Shangri-La dialogue. So having said that, we have to prepare ourselves. If you add on to what the Chinese have done in the course of 3 years on the Tibetan plateau and in the areas opposite eastern Ladakh, there are tremendous changes being brought across there. Of course, we have done commensurate work, but the Chinese have actually brought about the threat right next to our borders. with the formations there, with the kind of roads being built and the kind of runways being created, the heliports being created, the demographic changes being carried out on the border, the threat has been brought as close to it. It didn't exist before 2020, but that's the threat version today by their speaking, by their strategy they want to show, and also by physical location of forces, the way they're planning to do so. So we have to respond, and a response has to be in a manner that it's not platforms alone. It's the way you fight. Larger countries have been defeated by smaller neighbors. Look at Afghanistan defeating Soviet Union and United States. And look at what the bigger countries have felt in Libya or Syria or Vietnam or Korea. We have to be prepared with what we want to fight with and fight how we want to fight. That's the issue. The war fighting, the methodology of war fighting, and what we require to fight with. That planning is what is being done now.
Okay. General, is China getting the message that India will fight back and not permit salami slicing of Indian territory like in the past? Or in your appreciation, will China just continue with its pinpricks to test India's resolve, whether it's in Ladakh or Barahoti sector, in the middle sector, or in Sikkim or in Arunachal Pradesh? Or will China plan something like 1962, a big push into India? What's your appreciation?
So, you see, what they have tried in the course of in 2020 when they came up, but Galwan is just one major event that happened in that period. 700 kilometers of front they addressed between Rakhi Nala and Demchok Nala. Yes. Very large frontage they addressed simultaneously.
And so this is Eastern Ladakh, for the benefit of our viewers. The general commanded his corps there. Go on, sir.
And 700 kilometers, and they came and nibbled across into the territory, denying us patrolling rights. Look at what he's done now. When the last talks took place, he says, we want another 15 to 20 kilometers of buffer zone in the area towards Burse. So he actually, in Burse area from Rakhi Nala, he has not reached the 7th of November 59 line. So he wants to inch forward in that area also. So he's a dissatisfied country on the borders, absolutely dissatisfied. It comes also across in Yangtze, where he's dissatisfied with the McMahon line there. And then, of course, he does training and exercises in areas in proximity to the borders.
Can I briefly interrupt you to ask, he's dissatisfied because he was pushed back, because there was resistance, because he lost life, and because he hasn't succeeded in his aim? Is that why he's dissatisfied?
So he's dissatisfied because of all this talk about sovereignty and territorial integrity. It's explicit that, they are stuck into those so-called 7th of November 59 line, which has no sanctity, which is no legality, which is it's absolutely arbitrary line that they drew it, and they now want to move forward to this 7th of November line. And on the McMahon line, right from beginning, they were dissatisfied. They were not accepting McMahon line. Of course, Arunachal Pradesh is another issue altogether. In this century, they can't take on Arunachal Pradesh for any matter. So they are dissatisfied because of this talk about territorial integrity and the land left by our forefathers and all the language that they have spoken in the course of last 5 to 7 years. Having said that, I think we understood in 2020 that this nibbling thing will continue. And if we do not actually get on and pull up our socks to deny any more attempt to nibble at the borders, we will be a loser. And therefore, the first posture change that we did, even before we went across to build up our forces in commensurate levels, was to deny any further nibbling, which, as you mentioned about, is salami slicing. So right from one end of the border to all 4,000 kilometers to Kibitu, it has been denied. Now that nibbling is not possible because we are located there and we are building infrastructure to sustain forces to deny the nibbling. Having said that, it is also a message to the Chinese. Look, you want to come and take on this territory which you claim to be from Chawan Lai days yours, fight it out. Fight it out. It cannot be taken by a surreptitious nibbling like what Sun Tzu used to say, acme or skill. That is past. That's past.
So now we've realized that China is not a friend. China is a lying enemy. That realization is there. But General, does the defense of our territory from Arunachal Pradesh to Ladakh in the Himalayas? Does it lie in the Indian Ocean? If China presses us in the north, will there be consequences for China at the Malacca Straits choke point? Is that an option? Does China realize that?
I'm not too sure about this answer to this question here. You see, there are two different things. There's a territorial border, then there is a maritime frontier. A maritime frontier, Chinese has got strong weaknesses and we have strengths across there. But maritime frontier also has an issue of mercantile trade, which is also sustains countries like Japan or South Korea or countries like Southeast Asia. So all that trade also goes through the same 10-degree channel and the 5-degree channel and the Malacca Straits, through which the navies also pass through. So, you know, a war in maritime frontier has got international dimension. It's a different dimension altogether. It expands it. The Chinese anxiety is certainly there on the maritime frontier. But the maritime frontier has got different connotations altogether.
Fair enough. We need to strengthen ourselves even more. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be the first ever Prime Minister to address the US Congress twice. He will be traveling to the United States on a state visit. This visit is huge, both in terms of its content and in symbolism. The Prime Minister will get a 21-gun salute. He would be hosted by the US President Joe Biden at the White House. There will be extensive dialogue on economic partnership, on strategy, on climate change. We bring you this special report.
A diplomatic engagement of the highest significance in 2023. The world's most powerful nation set to extend the highest protocols to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his official state visit starting June 21st. Military honors, gala dinner, summit talks and an address by the leader of the world's largest democracy to a joint session of US Congress.
Prime Minister of India will be the first leader in independent India to address the US Congress twice. In my conversations with many of the congressmen and senators, I can certainly tell you that there is a lot of excitement amongst them. They want to hear about the India story and they want to hear about Prime Minister's vision and his thinking.
An Indian initiative his government launched in 2014. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to lead the International Yoga Day himself at the United Nations Secretariat in New York on June 21st.
Under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, who's really been pushing international recognition of yoga and supported the International Day. So the Honorable Prime Minister will be leading this session of yoga at the UN, at the United Nations, at the Secretariat on the 21st of June. I think it'll really be a very, very big deal.
He travels to Washington the same day. The Prime Minister is likely to attend an education event with First Lady Jill Biden. The day ends with a private dinner with President Biden and his family. An official welcome for the Prime Minister at the White House in Washington, D.C. the next day. A 21-gun salute in honor of Prime Minister Modi. A bilateral with President Joe Biden follows with defense, tech partnership and climate change in focus. At Capitol Hill, the Prime Minister scheduled to address the joint session and became the only Indian Prime Minister to get the honor twice. His speech will be keenly watched for his geopolitical import. The Prime Minister will be back at the White House in the evening for the state dinner. In attendance will be some 250 guests representing the diversity of the Indian American community.
Here that there's a huge demand for people to be in DC at that big dinner that President Biden will be hosting. Yeah, it is absolutely the hottest ticket in town. We look forward to seeing you there.
Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken will host a lunch on June 23rd for Prime Minister Modi at the State Department. During his US tour, Prime Minister Modi will address two diaspora gatherings, one of them at the prestigious Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. A visit expected to transform India-US ties and elevate their strategic partnership across sectors. With Seema Sirohi in Washington and Geeta Mohan in New Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
We will continue to track developments on the story very closely. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Coming up next is Business Today with Sakshi Batra. Stay with us.
The popular imagery associated with tuberculosis is that of a person coughing incessantly. But tuberculosis unfortunately affects more than just the lungs. It is a disease caused by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Though it usually affects the lungs, it can also affect other parts of the body such as the kidney, the brain, liver or spine. However, not everyone who has the bacteria in their system develops TB. An infection that doesn't manifest as disease is called latent TB. Here are the common symptoms: persistent cough, blood in the sputum, unexplained weight loss, fever and unexplained chills. Here are different types of TB. Renal TB. The symptoms are pus or blood in the urine, burning sensation, increased urination frequency, flank or abdominal pain. Brain TB, where symptoms are headache, photophobia, altered state of mental health, unusual posture, stiff neck, nausea and vomiting. Skeletal or bone TB, where joint inflammation, stiffness, spinal abscess and severe back pain, including muscle weakness, are the symptoms. Gastrointestinal TB, where diarrhea, constipation, weight loss, appetite loss, abdominal pain, feeling of a lump in the abdomen are the symptoms. Pleural TB, or infection in the pleura, where the thin layer of tissue that covers the lungs and lines the interior wall of the chest cavity gets infected. Breathlessness, chest pain, cough and weight loss are the symptoms. To date, the BCG vaccine remains the only licensed vaccine for the prevention of tuberculosis. It is traditionally given to newborns, and in that population, it has a protective effect.
In India, already the Indian TB Consortium under the aegis of ICMR has conducted trials in 6 states, and they have registered 12,000 contacts of tuberculosis patients. The aim is to prevent the TB disease in the contacts of this patient. So this trial is in run as of now, and we are hoping to get some positive news by 2024.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Business Today show with me, Sakshi Batra. Here's the top news. Hawkish US Fed stance ends a 3-day winning streak for markets. Investors turn cautious, pushing IT and bank shares deep into the red. Sensex down 311 points, while Nifty falls 68 points. Mixed signals from the US Fed provide some relief as it pauses an aggressive rate hike cycle, but rattles markets with a statement that it will raise rates at least twice by the end of this year. Trade deficit widens to $22 billion in May. It is a 5-month high, more than a 10% fall in merchandise exports, sluggish demand from major buyers overseas. Box office celebrates again with Adipurush releasing tomorrow. Analysts expect better first-day collections than even SRK's Pathan, 3D magnum opus to end 2-month drought. Global superstar Beyoncé blamed for rising prices in Sweden. Economists say the hysteria and crowds from all over the world at her concert in Stockholm led to a 20 basis point rise in inflation in May. Straight on to our first story then. The US Federal Reserve took a pause from hiking interest rates last night. Now, this was the first time in 15 months that the world's largest central bank did not hike rates in order to bring down inflation to its 2% target range. Now, while the decision was in line with what most of the economists had anticipated, several global markets and even gold trimmed gains, with the Fed also indicating that it may resort to 2 hikes this year to further tame inflation. Listen in.
We have raised our policy interest rate by 5 percentage points, and we've continued to reduce our securities holdings at a brisk pace. We've covered a lot of ground, and the full effects of our tightening have yet to be felt. In light of how far we've come in tightening policy, the uncertain lags with which monetary policy affects the economy, and potential headwinds from credit tightening, today we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Looking ahead, nearly all committee participants view it as likely that some further rate increases will be appropriate this year to bring inflation down to 2% over time.
So that was Federal Reserve Chairperson Jerome Powell talking about further rate hikes will be appropriate going forward from here. But now joining in to discuss what can one expect on gold prices going forward, with me I have Sugandha Sachdeva, Executive Director and Chief Strategist at Acme Investment Advisors, joining right in. Welcome, Sugandha, and so glad to have you on India Today with us. First up, gold prices really hit 3-month low on the MCX after US Fed decision last night. Do share with us, first of all, how do the gold prices really get impacted with the US Fed's move on the rates, and what does the current pause really mean for the prices going forward?
Yeah, hi, good evening, Sakshi. It's a pleasure to be a part of your show. In terms of the gold prices, we have seen that prices have inched lower after the Fed's decision to pause interest rates after almost 10 consecutive rate hikes. But yes, it's a hawkish stance which the Fed has maintained, even though the market was expecting that Fed would actually pause its year-long tightening spree. But then Fed has already hinted that they are likely to hike interest rates 2 more times this year. So now they're expecting the terminal rate to be around